This is A Few Good Fights, proudly brought to you by the MMA Movement. I am Noel O'Keefe, he's Robert Palin, and that's Sean Taylor, and this is episode 2. Gentlemen, how are we?
Good. I'm good.
Been an interesting week of fights and news, and that's where we're going to start it off at the big MMA news. This is where we're going to talk about little pieces that intrigued us during the week. We will look back at the fights that went down on Saturday night as well. We're also joined by UFC featherweight Danny Henry, who fights this weekend at UFC London. We'll be fighting your corner. Fight your corner. Loved it. We got great reaction to it last week. Sean gives us a topic blind. Myself and Rob decide who was for and against. And no matter if you agree with that topic or disagree, you got to fight your corner and pick your side. We'll look ahead to UFC Fight Night London, possibly the best in recent memory UFC card to hit the European shores.
Yeah,
fair to say.
Yeah.
And then we'll be educating young Sean. You had some homework this week, young fella.
Yep, I did.
So we'll be marking you and grading you. Will you get an A+? We will see. And then we will leave the show where we always leave, and that is in Sean's weird and wonderful news section. But let's start with your big MMA news. UFC on ESPN +4, Lewis versus Dos Santos has happened. It's gone down. One of the interesting articles I seen and a bit of news coming out of the Derek Lewis camp was that apparently Derek Lewis went into the fight with a torn meniscus, ACL and MCL, but refused to withdraw from the fight. Now, it was questioned in commentary in between round 1 and 2 while his corner was saying, you gotta go and finish this fucking fight after round 1. You were like, huh?
Yeah.
I know he got hurt with the body kick and all, and that's where I thought it come from. But I said that today to somebody, and they said, that's just an excuse. And you're like, well, I'm sure they'll have medical records to like put this forward that it's not an excuse. But what do we think? Because for me, watching Derek Lewis, I thought that was the most light-footed, attack-minded Derek Lewis. I thought Derek Lewis looked really well in the fight.
Yeah, I thought he looked really good. And when he got hit with that body shot, I mean, like, going into the fight and when it started, I didn't sense any injury. I didn't see, like, sometimes you see a guy coming in, you're like, he doesn't look right. And as you said, Derek Lewis almost looked better than he has in previous fights. I'm not sure about if you want to say he's the best he's ever looked, but in terms of like the shots that he was throwing high kicks, and they're probably the best high kicks I've seen Derek Lewis throw. And he's throwing techniques that we haven't really seen him throw. He just didn't look injured. So if that is the case, I have no reason to believe that it's not the case. I don't think they're going to lie about that. Fair play to him. Yeah. Fair play to him.
Indeed. With the fight though itself, were you surprised with the tactics? Because when I was breaking the fight down last week, I sort of said I think Junior Dos Santos he's more crisp boxing style. He uses good footwork to get in and get out, and he really seemed to be darting in to try and get his shots off, and then would literally stumble and run away to sort of get away from any counters with good reason, as Derek Lewis landed a couple. But were you surprised with Junior's style? Because for me, it almost looked like he was overreaching in a lot of his shots. He was really throwing everything in it. So I was a bit surprised that it wasn't a more technical, savvy Junior Dos Santos.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised in that way because I did expect him to be more on his bike and more, I guess, trying to bring it into the later rounds where he was throwing some bigger shots than we normally would see from Junior early. But maybe he just felt like he was on another level, and he felt like if he landed, he could get the finish. And it did happen. It did happen eventually. But I know what you mean. He was overthrown a little bit. It seems like he was trying to rush it a little bit. But I thought all in all he looked good. And as the Derek Lewis, but that shot to the body, I don't think, like, I guess that injury did affect his performance, but that shot to the body was lovely. Yeah,
it looked like he was playing possum for a minute when he came back with the absolute baseball overhand right counter. But big shots, indeed, remember that, I thought Junior, you done well, good win, 3 in a row for Junior Dos Santos now. So, realistically, you win that many fights in the heavyweights and everyone starts talking about you for title shots, and that's exactly what happened.
Of course. And plus, he's in a good position now because Ken Velasquez isn't there. Well, he's around, but he's not really in that kind of contention. Daniel Cormier might relinquish the belt at some point if he doesn't lose it. And there's no one really there that Junior can't fight that people wouldn't be interested in. There's not that huge blocker like Kane would have been.
With the DC thing, and I think DC's going to be fighting Brock. Dana White's been talking about that again, starting to talk it up. So realistically for me, one that would get 100% would get Junior Dos Santos the next title shot is if he rematched Stipe Miocic. Of course, they fought in early 2017. Stipe getting the win in the first round, but that could be a fight that is the one to get him there, the former champion.
Yeah, I like the like. There's really no bad fight in that division for Junior. At least up in that top 3 or 4.
You know what I mean? It is the rubber match. They both have victories over each other. It makes sense. You know, Stipe wants the title shot. So, 3 wins on the trot for Junior Dos Santos. They're 1-1 with each other. Let's go rubber match, and let's get, the winner takes either fights for DC, or if he relinquishes it goes on for the vacant title.
I like it.
Junior actually called out Francis on Twitter, or I think it was on Twitter on his media scrum after. He called out Francis Ngannou after the fight. He said, let's get it on.
And again, that fight makes sense as well. But everyone keeps forgetting about Stipe. Nobody seems to be calling Stipe a former champion. Yeah. The most defendable heavyweight champion in the UFC's history.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It's like he's a fucking tough fight, isn't he? Do you know what I mean?
Probably that's why.
Yeah, but when you look at Junior Dos Santos, he beat Ivanov, Toya Veza, and Derek Lewis. So you know what I mean? He's to put it in Sean's neck of the woods lingo, he's beating 3 hardy bastards.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Is that what you say?
Yeah, something like that. We go. There's a couple of different phrases we'd use.
The old bugger talk.
But
Derek Lewis, what's next for Derek Lewis? Where does Derek Lewis stand now? All of a sudden, he was gone from the title shot to now he's dropped a couple of fights.
You know what? I thought he was going to retire. After the fight, he was taking off his gloves. His coach was helping him take off his glove, and the camera was just stuck on it. I'm not sure if that was the stream I was watching.
His knuckles were hot.
Yeah, great joke. But I thought he was going to retire. I thought that was where it was going, especially because Derek Lewis has this history of back injuries, which is a crippling injury for any fighter. So I thought that's where he was going. Doesn't seem to be. So I don't know. He could there's a few good fights from there. He seems like
beautiful. See the way he worked that in. Such a professional. There's a few good fights in there.
Brilliant.
What a pro.
Didn't mean it. Yeah. I don't know who exactly.
Yeah,
I don't make
but as
fights on the night.
As I said though, heavyweight's one of them is that division that a couple of wins and all of a sudden you're back in the talk of championship again. So and Derek Lewis is a fun fighter. That was a good fun fight. He got caught. Nice finish by Junior with the shots he landed. A little unorthodox in some ways, but clipped him behind the ear. Equilibrium gone. And you could see when Derek Lewis, he'd already wobbled him in the first round. As Derek Lewis stepped off the cage, you could see the legs were gone, and Junior just capitalised. Excellent work. Co-main event. It was the outcome that I predicted, but it wasn't the fight I was expecting. Millender had said, I'll wait till the 3-minute mark and he'll shoot. Nope, just wait about the 30 seconds, and Dos Santos changed level, got it down, and once it was there, it was never competitive.
Yeah, it was from a perspective of him, it was a very disappointing performance. I was expecting a lot more from him, but it's very underrated. Dos Santos is very underrated, very, very underrated, and I thought that Millender, it was his fight to lose here. But yeah, once he got that takedown, it was just trouble. And it was a lot of trouble, and he finished it early. It was a great performance. I'm interested to see where they both go. Millender definitely has a lot of work to do if he wants to reach the heights that a lot of people think he can reach. So it was very disappointing from that perspective. But again, there's another really good fighter in that division coming up in Zaleski.
Yeah, beautiful performance. And if you were paying attention to the last week, here is the third fight of the treble or the parlay that I had shouted about last week at 7-1 odds. Nico Price defeats Tim Means at 4 minutes 50 seconds of round number 1. And what was one hell of a fun fight. Finished it with that counter. It was almost like a right hook / straight right. It was a little unorthodox as he threw it. That's because he was hurt as well. Yeah. Price started the fight on fire and got over enthusiastic and got taken down. Tim Means looked like he was taking the fight over. Got a little Diaz style, landing some slaps. But woo, that counter right that put him out. And don't talk to me about the ankle. Oh, Tim Means' ankle.
It was vicious. We may have a picture. I don't know if Sean can get it up, but if he can, we'll throw it. But
that's a different question.
If he can get it up on the screen. Again, that was another crazy fight. It was probably fight at night, but I'm not even sure what got fight at night. Although they don't really do that anymore. They do performances at night. But that probably would be the scrap of the night because really, really good fight. Tim Means is tough. But man, that shot that he caught, and that was one thing that you called out. But if you don't put him out, he'll stay in there, and he landed that big shot. I was expecting a bit more grappling, but he throws that shot really wild, but he lands it all the time.
It's almost like the damage
Yeah.
You know, when you have him hurt, you know, that's exactly where he wants you to have him. You know what I mean? And Nico Price like that.
Or Chris Leben, bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah. But yeah, like I just it was a fun fight to watch. It was crazy. It was a crazy finish, but a big finish. And man, all of a sudden, like Nico Price, I know he got caught early
has some good wins though
in his fight previous, but he's putting the run together. I actually. He roared down the mic, and I wasn't 100% sure who he called out. He said...
I'm not sure he was sure who he called out.
He called somebody out and said, yo, you're next, I'm going to knock you out. I didn't really understand who he said. But big win for Nico Price. Now, I think this is the one that got people talking a lot, was Ivanov taking on Ben Rothwell. And as I said to you, Rob, when I was watching the fights, I watched them on Sunday morning, so I had them recorded. And I was sitting watching the fight, and I had the kettle was boiling, the kettle had boiled. And I was sitting watching the Rothwell fight, and the fight ended, and I thought, all right, I'll go make a cup of coffee now. So I got up to go make a cup of coffee, and you could hear Bruce Buffer, and your judges scored 29-28. Went, yeah, that sounds about right for your winner. And black guy. I look,
like what?
Did Buffer say Ben incorrectly?
Yeah.
And like it was, as I watched it, I started like, I just took for granted that Ben Rothwell had won the fight, and I was sort of saying to myself, he's such an awkward fight for any heavyweight. And I was looking at just the way he walks you down, and I thought Paul Felder summed it up beautifully in commentary. He almost walked you down with his hands out. I was like, no, come here. I just want to talk to you for a minute. Come here. And next minute he lands shots on you. Like, don't get me wrong, I've landed some big shots. There was blood on the face of Rothwell, but when they put up the significant strikes and all that, and I know that necessarily doesn't paint the full picture.
Yeah.
But like, I think it was round one, Ivanov had like 2 more punches landed than Ben Rothwell, but then the rest were all Rothwell.
Yeah, but like...
And he was walking him down. He was constantly putting the pressure on. Like, Ivanov's going to look like a pug today. His whole face will be just swollen out. Like, and I just... Like, I actually, to be honest with you, I have to go back and rewatch
I'd have to go back and...
judges hat
exactly.
on.
I'd have to go back and rewatch it. But... I was the same as you. When it finished, there wasn't even any thought of that was a close fight. What will the decision be? It was, that's a good win for Ben. Ben Rothwell's back. Well done. Yeah. Took some time off. Tough guy. Well done. And when the decision was read, I was like, oh, that's strange. But again, I watched it live and I was talking to some friends and stuff, so I didn't pay a huge amount of attention on it. But from the attention I did put on it, I thought Rothwell done a good job. I thought he landed better shots. I thought he was coming forward. And you could see it in Ivanov's face. He took some big shots and he did wear it, but yeah, it was just weird.
Ivanov was throwing counters. He was constantly on the back foot, and that's not to say when you're on the back foot that you can't win the fight. Like, but I just thought Ben Rothwell control. I know it's striking and grappling and octagon control. So technically, octagon control is the third point for judging the fight, and Ben Rothwell was just walking down Ivanov. But yeah, it was a weird one, and you could see even Rothwell sort of went, "What, Bruce? You said my name wrong." You know what I mean? He was a bit like, "What the fuck?" But it was a weird one. Tell you what wasn't a weird one was that submission by Dariush. I went through over in this, and this was almost like this could have been on the UFC 200 card. Was it the 200 card where no, it wasn't. It was the card that they work out striker grappler there not too long ago. It was 25th anniversary. But I just thought it was like Dober was having all this success on the feet. He was hurting Dariush, landed some good shots, but as soon as it went to the ground, it was just different. It was chalk and cheese.
But again, it was a real example of Dariush as a fighter in the UFC. Can get in a lot of trouble, can potentially get finished. He was taking some big shots, and he was definitely losing the fight, and then gets the takedown and wins. But that easily, it's a game of inches with Dariush. Sometimes
nice adjustments by Dariush. It looked like Dober was going to get out the back door, and he almost just grapevined the toy of Dober, so he couldn't get out of that position and allow him to hyperextend that elbow. It was a beautiful finish.
Did anything else stand out to you on that card?
Poor Yana. Kanitska, oh my god. Oh, Kanitskaya's face.
Yeah, she took a beating, although she won the fight though.
She's going to have to hit an old pause on the old Instagram modelling career there. Took a hammer.
Louis Smoker lost as well. Good fighter, but man,
Tim Boach,
very inconsistent.
That it for Tim Boach?
Potentially.
He talked about leading into the fight, that potential retirement, and again, Paul Felder in commentary, excellent job, said this is the type of fight that if you're thinking about retirement is the one that convinces you, because you don't want to take that type of beating like that. I think it was a right hand that landed by Akhmedov, and it just like smashed Tim Boach's nose.
Yeah, it was bad.
And it's like, fuck, do I really want to fucking keep doing this? Because is he gonna get into the top 10, into the top 5 at this stage of his career? No. So talking about taking gloves off, I was surprised that.
And plus, that's the type of fight that Tim Boach likes, against the type of an opponent he likes. A guy who'll come forward, a guy who'll scrap with him, not try to grapple him too much, and allow Tim Boach to play his game. And Tim Boach lost that fight, so I'm sure he'll look back at that one and think, maybe if this was about 5 or 6 fights ago, I probably would have won this one. I probably would have been able to do it. But yeah, probably it's it for Tim Bosch. Yeah,
Good to see Marcus Davis in the corner,
Of course.
giving the information to his fighter. With Donald Cerrone's proposed bout against Conor McGregor, it's unlikely to happen, weirdly due to card placement. So before we go further into the story, this is Joe Rogan had said it that on the Joe Rogan Experience. I believe that's a podcast.
I believe so. Yeah.
Great podcast. All day. He had said that it was due to Conor McGregor more so. It was Conor that didn't want to be the co-main event. So this is one that it's quite interesting when I'm talking to people I've been speaking to about it. So before I say what other people are saying, what do you think? Is Conor McGregor right to not fight unless he's the main event?
Yeah, I think so. I think in a way, I think what he has done in the UFC so far in terms of the pay-per-views he's sold, basically just the box office attraction that he is, the box office attraction. I think so. I think it is a main event.
Add to the question, right? Let's say we don't know what card it's on, but there's a title fight on. Should it trump the title fight and be the main event?
It shouldn't for sporting reasons, but I think if I'm the businessman, if I'm the guy that's running it, I'm putting it on the top of the card.
Okay, right. But
100%.
Co-main event, for example, I find, I don't know how you feel, I'll include you as well, Sean, but I don't know how you feel when you're watching MMA, but like boxing, if you tune in to watch boxing, you mainly tune in to watch the main event.
Yeah.
And the boxing's on and these are all having a few drinks and talking shit, and then the main event starts and you start watching that. Well, MMA for me is different. I'll tune in and watch the prelims just as much excited as I am for the main event. So I think main event slot isn't really there. I think if
that's for us though. I think we're different types of fans. I really do.
But for me, I think if the UFC were just to pay McGregor the main event pay, it doesn't matter if he's second last or last. Just get on and fight, and no disrespect,
there's got to be
he lost his last fight.
Yeah, there's got to be a bit of an ego thing for him there as well.
I don't think.
I wonder.
Sorry, I'm talking closer. I don't think it's not Fight Your Conor yet, but here we go. I don't think the belt should be disrespected by putting. If it's a card and it's not. There's no title fight on it, but we know now all the big pay-per-view fights and stuff, they always want to have a title on it. But if there's not a title fight on the card, yes, by all means, Conor McGregor should be the main event. But there is a belt on it. I think you're disrespecting your belt by putting a non-title fight above your title.
I think you can make that argument for sure.
Stick it on ESPN.
I absolutely think you can make that argument. I think
stick it on free TV.
Yeah, I think the belts should be the end-all, be-all. They should be the most important thing on the card. I really do. But there is some exceptions, and I think this is one. We've seen with him in the past when he had non-title fights in main events, the amount of pay-per-views that it done. So from a business perspective, I think it makes sense. And also, why have a title fight on? You don't need it. You could just do.
I
you could just do that as a main event, as a special once-off attraction type fight. That's what I think they should do, because if you are putting a title fight there, you're gonna get this backlash from people like you and people who think that the belts are being disrespected. People like you. No, but from hardcore fans who think that the belt is being disrespected by either not putting it in the main event or by promoting the co-main event in favour of the main event. Because that's what happened though.
I just think it cheapens your.
But what's worse? Is it worse to have McGregor and Cerrone or whoever in the main event and have no title fight under it, or have a title fight under it and have a title fight over it, and then out promote? You're going to be promoting the McGregor fight. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And the other fight is just going to get no promotion at all. So I think it's almost more disrespectful to do that and then not even show the title fight in your promotion. So I think just split it. Have it as a main event. Do another good fight in the
co. Do you think that Conor McGregor, because everyone goes, well, look at the numbers you done as a main event with Nate Diaz. But do you think Cowboy Cerrone versus Conor McGregor carries that same way? And again, I'm only asking these questions. This isn't my opinion that I think that.
Nate, no, I think it's probably not. I think Nate and Conor are a special thing. I think Nate on his own is a bit of a draw. You don't think he's as much of a draw as a lot of people do.
Journeyman.
But I think he still has a big fan base.
He does, huge.
Probably still.
I'm a part of that fan base. I just be frustrated with just fucking get in the cage and fight.
Yeah.
Talking about that, Cowboy Cerrone and that fella Nate Diaz did have an exchange when Brett Okamoto has shared the conversation between Cowboy and Nate Diaz. Cowboy said backstage at UFC 235. Nate, when are you fighting again? He said, it's not me, UFC doing it. So he's basically saying Dana White's not getting them in there.
Yeah.
Cowboy came back with, well, just to let you know, I'll fight you. Diaz said, shit, we'll do it at 185. I'm done cutting weight. And Cowboy said, okay. 185 Cowboy.
Yeah, I know.
No
Hilarious.
Hilarious.
Just fought at 155.
Question for both of you is, if you could have them three, you've put them in a room right now. What's
Who
the
walks
fight?
out?
What's a triple threat? What's the fight that you make?
Conor and Nate.
Yeah, Conor and Nate, 100%.
I agree.
100%.
Yeah, whatever.
They have to have the rubber match.
Yeah, I agree.
And as much as like I jokingly said journeyman before everyone starts commenting on me going, that spectacle guy saying he's I like him, but I just frustrated with Diaz.
Yeah.
And when I put Diaz, I say Diaz's. I'd be frustrated with them that they'd be like, oh, I'm going to fight, and then they go away. Like, I was so fucking...
Nick doesn't want to fight.
So, yeah, he doesn't want to hurt people anymore.
Yeah.
There was an exchange in the aftermath of the UFC 235. Dana was being interviewed in the background by Megan O'Leary, and Nate walked by, and Dana and Nate shook hands, and
Oh, shit.
Nate walked off, was like, peace out, see you soon, man. And Megan asked...
Yeah, Megan shouted at him, are we going to see you there? He said, yeah, come and film.
Yeah, and then she asked Dana, and Dana was like, nah, well, I've seen him anytime soon.
No. Like, Nate literally went, yeah, I'm coming film, and kept walking. And Megan went, are we going to see Nate Diaz? And they went, nah. No, we're not. Not a chance of seeing him too. But that seems to be the problem. They're that far away in agreement.
Absolutely, yeah.
Coming on. So,
but yeah, I'd like to see both fights anyway. Like, I'd watch both.
And Perez's boxing coach has come out as well and said that he'd do the rubber match with Conor. He just wants to be paid his worth. And in that fight, I can understand. If that's the fight, I can genuinely understand Nate Diaz should get his value, because Conor McGregor is going to be insanely well paid. And man, Nate Diaz should be on similar, because their fight was classic.
Yeah.
Yoel Romero set to return to the Octagon following his June loss to Robert Whittaker. He'll headline UFC Florida on April 27th against Jacare Souza. So the two fought previously at UFC 194 with Yoel winning by a split decision. It's a good fight though, isn't it?
Yeah, I like the fight.
Considering Adesanya and Gastelum are going at it.
Yeah, I like the fight. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. The first one was very, very close, and I know a lot of people.
Controversial one,
Yeah, I know a lot of people thought it should have went the other way. I can't remember, if I'm being honest. If you want to put me on the spot, I'll say I don't know, because I can't remember how it played out or who I thought won. But I like the fight, and it makes a whole lot of sense in that division. Yeah. And the winner of it probably will be close to a title fight. Of course, you could have Robert Whittaker coming back, and then maybe a unification of the interim title. But I like the fight a lot. Yeah,
it's a good fight, because Yoel and Jacare are both in. Like, they're in the top 5, they're outside. Like, Adesanya and Gastelum are rightly fighting for the interim, if you're happy with interims. So it makes sense for them to be the next in line, if you know what I mean. So if Whittaker doesn't come back, the winner of this fight can fight the winner of Gastelum Adesanya. Yeah,
it's an interesting dynamic. Like, you have the two guys in Romero and Souza, almost like the old guard, even though they didn't really win the title at middleweight in the UFC, but they're still the old guard. They're like perennial contenders. They've always been there. And then you have Adesanya and you have Gastelum fighting, but they're the young guys.
The young blood.
So it's kind of an interesting dynamic, and it'd be interesting to see where they go from there. Of course, you can call Whittaker a bit of the young blood as well. Been around the UFC for a while, but only been champion a while. So yeah, I like the fight.
With both fighters coming off losses to John Bones Jones, Alexander Gustafsson and Anthony Smith are set to headline UFC Stockholm on the 1st of June. Gustafsson verbally agreed to fight Corey Anderson beforehand on Twitter. Yeah, that means nothing. But Anthony Smith getting back in there straight away.
Yeah.
And in fairness, Gustafsson not that long past after getting beaten by Jones as well. So
yeah. It's kind of like the... You know, not the rejects, that's the wrong word, but the two guys who didn't quite make it. And no, I like the fight. It's a really good fight.
See, weirdly, I think it's a better fight for Anthony Smith. And my reason for saying it's a better fight for Anthony Smith is...
He'll get more from it.
It's like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson with Woodley losing the title has reopened his possibility of fighting for that title. Yeah. While Gustafsson... If he wins this fight, they're not going to do Gus Jones again. Do you know what I mean? So for Anthony Smith, this is a good one. If he was to go in there, and if
they're not going to do Jones Smith again either, though.
Not that quick, though.
No,
but I mean, they're not going to do Jones and Gus full stop for me. They're never going to fight again, for me.
Yeah. I agree.
While Anthony Smith wins 2 or 3 times, he could get the Jones call again.
Yeah, it's still though. I do agree. I think it's a more beneficial fight for Anthony Smith. But then I do still feel like if he wins this fight, it doesn't really put him closer to a title because Jones just beat Gustafsson. So like a lot of people who, I guess you can call them the casuals.
Yeah, but Jones just beat everyone.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I mean. Like, I mean, if he went in there and beat some young guy or someone who didn't compete against Jones very recently and it was impressive, people might say, "Oh, he just beat this guy. Let's go." But if he beats Gustafsson, people will say, "Well, Jones beat him as well." So like, you just beat both.
Yeah,
of them,
but you know, I know what you're. I do.
That's the perception I think.
But the measuring stick for that makes no sense because the only thing
John
Jones didn't beat is the MMA rule set of 12 to 6 elbows and ridiculous.
I just think that's going to be the perception. Not that I say it's right. I just think that's what it's going to be.
Speaking of a big main event in Stockholm, UFC returns to the UK this weekend, but has the Bellator European Invasion and Sky Sports deal forced the UFC to up their game and add bigger names to their European shows?
Yes, would be the answer to that. Yeah, big time.
Yeah. Do you like the card on the weekend?
I love the card. Yeah, it's one of the best cards I've seen in a long time in Europe. Yeah, big time.
But do you think it's the push of Bellator? Bellator obviously investing a lot in. They've been to Italy a good few times. They've been to Ireland now on a couple of occasions, and they've mentioned they're coming back to Ireland in September. They haven't actually announced a date for that though, but they have announced that they're coming back. So they're signing a lot of European talent. There's a lot of shows on. Obviously, the Sky Sports deal is huge. The Paul Daly Venom Page fight was on. What a fight! Go back and watch it. Don't. But
high level strikers.
Do you think that it's sort of in some ways forcing the hand at you? Because I found the UFC, and it's no disrespect to fighters that would have been on these European cards, but they were just selling the card off the three initials.
Yeah,
you know, the UFC was selling out the arena, not the fighters that were on it. While now, like I think this card alone at the weekend, like there's a lot of fighters on this card now that would have been co-main and main event, and they're, you know what I mean, they're much lower down the card. Again, I'm not being disrespectful. I just mean they're bringing the big boys, the likes of Darren Till, Jorge Masvidal, like Volkan Ozdemir just fought for the light heavyweight title not too long ago. He's on the main. You know what I mean? So there's.
I definitely think there's an argument because the UFC, I don't think they really like to be competed with anywhere, wherever it is.
They normally just buy them out and then
exactly
liquidate them.
Exactly. So I'm sure that now the UFC are looking at what Bellator are doing, signing a deal with Sky Sports, and I'm sure the UFC have looked into signing with Sky Sports before, because why wouldn't they? And I'm sure they're looking at the card they put on, filling out the Tree Arena, and thinking, wait, like why aren't we the main promotion there? And they probably are looking at that.
In saying that, Bellator in Ireland was only like, and the Sky Sports deal was only maybe a month ago. That the main framework of this card was signed and done then.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm sure they knew the news was coming of how many cards Bellator were putting on number one, and then maybe there was a little bit of a leak about the Sky Sports deals, which is huge.
Yeah. It looks like they have different approaches though, because like you can criticize Bellator's card if you're not in Ireland, even if you're in Ireland if you want, because they didn't really put on huge names in the Bellator roster. What they almost took.
I feel like the no disrespect guy. A lot of people that you spoke to going to Bellator were like saying it's just a pumped up Bama card.
They were. But what Bellator are doing now, and it might not be on the same scale, but they're kind of taking the approach the UFC did originally, where the UFC filled that not the first Dublin card, but the Dublin card with Conor McGregor on it, and they filled that with
Paddy,
all the big names in Irish MMA, and Bellator done a similar thing. They filled it with all the Irish MMA names right now, and of course, I don't think Irish MMA is in the same spot as it was back then. I think maybe those names were a little bit bigger.
But do you think that's only hindsight that's allowing you to say that?
Because obviously Conor was a bigger star than anyone on that card at the time. Even at the time, he was. But that's an exception. But yeah, maybe like Cal Pendred, he was on Tough, so he had that bit of a name. But like Neil Seary, they were all still new for the American crowd. Yeah. But for Ireland, they were still big names, like because they were the originals and everyone watched them. But yeah, I think apart from Conor, you could probably compare the names. You probably could.
It's mad to think, isn't it? Paddy Hewlin opened that card, and then the next time he fought in 3 Arena, he headlined it.
Yeah.
If you remember as well, the UFC did that 11 Sports deal. And then that went tits up. And then the reason behind that was there's the same owners as in 11 Sports as with the UFC. So the talk was that they were just trying to drive up the price with the likes of Sky and BT. So.
And that makes a whole lot of sense, because when I seen that they had a stake in it, and I seen that the UFC were going to sign with them, I was like, this is a bit weird. This is a bit fishy. And then when they cancel it, I was like, That's very weird, isn't it? I know 11 Sports in general went a bit tits up.
It's about to go tits up in Ireland anyway. It's still functioning in like Italy and other countries, but it's gone in Ireland pretty much.
It's a bit of a shame though, because I would have liked kind of like an online streaming service. I think that would be cool. You young
people with your online streaming, I just need the old telly on the remote control and flick it on.
No, because I'm not really in the house and stuff. I have a social life at the club, watching some fights. I'm joking.
Up the dance floor, streaming. Yeah, baby. Knockout. Yeah. But I do think Bellator. I think it's good though. You said it that they don't like being monopolised, or they don't like having competition. But competition breeds this for you, the fan.
Yeah, of course.
And like the funny thing is, like when you went to Bellator, I love Bellator. It was a great night out.
It was, yeah.
Still Bellator though, isn't it? Like it's not, you know what I mean? It's not the premier show,
yeah.
You know, and it still carries that. And people will criticize you for saying that, but that's
it. Just is what it is.
That's the thing. You go and see it, and it's like, you know, somebody said it to me. It's almost like the stepbrother of the UFC. You know, they have like an MC who's just not as good as Bruce Buffer, and you know what I mean. They have, you know, that's just
they have
not
Goldie.
as good. Well,
just like that,
just like that. But you know what I mean. And it's like it's a harsh criticism, but it's a criticism that a lot of people will take.
But they're doing some good work in Ireland.
But yeah, I think it's
UK.
awesome.
I like the series thing.
Yeah, I have to say I'm all over it, and I can't wait when they return in September. So if UFC again, they announced their shows for the rest of the year. They fucked us for Liverpool. And they haven't come back at all.
Yeah.
We'll forgive you. We'll let you go off and cheat once.
Yeah,
that's it. And come back and give us a card. Because like MMA is huge in Ireland. You've seen that by Bellator. Yeah. In saying that, realistically, the possibilities of us getting a ticket for the UFC when they went on sale would be fucking slim to fucking none. You'd be messaging everyone, you a member?
Slim
are you a member of that UFC fan club? Give us your code there, like, buy a ticket, will you? Yeah. Maybe nosebleeds for like 200 quid. Like.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, he's talking to the light engineer. All right, mate. All right. Yeah. Have any binoculars there? Yeah. But yeah.
Still look at the screens when you're down there anyway. So
you're not going to be able to see once you have a couple of pints in you.
You know, yeah.
Pints and fights.
Yeah.
Pints and fights.
Few good fights, and a fair few pints. I don't know what's next.
Oh Jesus. Danny Henry.
So we are now joined on a few good fights by UFC featherweight Danny Henry. Danny, thanks a million for taking the time to come on to a few good fights, my man.
Thanks for having me on.
Danny, we haven't seen you in a while, and by that I mean in the octagon. It's almost to the day. It's a year out. So what caused the long layoff?
I just had a few niggling injuries and stuff, and then I had to go and get a wee bit of surgery on one of them, and just That's all it's been. I've still been working away, still training hard, just been injured.
That's it sounds like an excuse if you go back to an old interview we had when you got the call up to the UFC. You were in a cast when you got the call up.
Honestly, I've had no luck in the last sort of 2-3 years. I feel like I've just been consistently injured. Even my last 3 or 4 pro fights, I've been going into these fights with pretty big injuries. Like everybody gets niggles and stuff going into fights and little things that bother them, but the stuff I've been carrying in has been ridiculous. I probably shouldn't have been in there, to be honest.
Did you say that was you got surgery, was it?
Yeah, I got surgery on my elbow.
And is that like an injury that has been reoccurring?
So basically, yeah, I've got like early onset arthritis. So I have these bone spurs that have cropped up, and they cause a lot of inflammation in the joint. So I'd go through spells of 2-3 weeks where my arm would be swollen. I couldn't straighten it, I couldn't fully bend it, I couldn't throw a right hand. Even up to my last fight there, I fought there, but that my elbow gave me grief for the whole camp. About 2 weeks out, I had about 50% range in my arm before that fight. So,
jeez, that makes that performance even more impressive.
Yeah, so thankfully the elbows are good, and to be honest, this is the best I've felt health-wise in a long time. So.
Yeah, that's something it almost seems the standard line when fighters are being interviewed. They always say it's the best camp I've ever had and I'm injury free. Out of 100%, how accurate do you think that statement is when other fighters say it? Like, do you think a lot of it's, you know, is that part of the fight game, is covering up injuries?
Yeah, 100%. Everybody's holding themselves together in one way or another. You know, you can't train this sport and not pick up injuries and sore bits. if you aren't injured and hurt, then you probably aren't training hard enough. And it just I'm 100% guy. So when I'm training, I'm going 100%. So when I hurt myself, I do it good and proper, you know.
You fight Dan Ige on Saturday night. What's your thoughts on the fight? Do you know much about him?
Yeah, I've done a wee bit of research on him. He's on paper, he's probably the strongest grappler I've ever fought. He's a BJJ black belt, judo brown belt, and I believe he's done a bit of wrestling and stuff in high school and college and stuff. So, he looks pretty legit. Solid record of 10-2. A lot of stoppages, submissions, and I think mostly ground and pound victories. I don't know if he's got many one punch stoppages or anything like that, but yeah, he looks like a good test.
You spoke about like half the job in leading up to a fight is covering up injuries and being basically falling apart. If people don't know, Dan Ige is actually a manager. I think he's a full-time manager for Dominance MMA as well. What's your thoughts on that? As in, do you think that would take up much of his time? You probably don't even care about what he's doing, but do you think it takes up much of his time? And do you think that would actually affect you, like having that kind of full-time gig while fighting?
I don't know. I work full-time, so you know I'm not really at any advantage with him working. It is what it is. You've got to do what you've got to do. Pay bills, I suppose. Does it affect his career? I don't know. If anything, if you were going to have a job, maybe that's one of the better ones to have, because he's going to be in and around the UFC, experiencing it firsthand all the time. So maybe it helps with his anxiety and stuff. Maybe he responds better at it now because he's around it all the time. I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
How do you find that work balance with training? Because to be a professional mixed martial artist, like I know there's a lot of young fighters now that are amateur, that are even focusing and not going to work and training at a full time. So how do you balance that work life and training life?
That's all right when you're a young fighter and you live with your mum and dad. But you've got bills to pay and cars to run, and it just doesn't fly. I don't know, I'm pretty fortunate. My employer is a big fan of what I do. He comes to the fights. He's sponsored me in the past in my previous organisation. They always help me out, and even on the run up to this one, he's let me take a lot of time off to help me prepare. So they've been great with it, and I can't thank them enough.
Is it the fact that you had such a layoff that you're still working, or do you expect, even if you had a couple of fights last year, a few more fights, you probably would still be working? What's your thoughts on that?
I think I would definitely still work. I don't think I could be one of those guys that just gets up and trains, sleeps, trains. It would get a bit monotonous for me. I like to stay busy, and I like to keep my mind busy and stay active. And like, it's a short career you've got as a fighter, so you can't just. What are you going to do after if you've got no actual workplace skills to take to a role? Like, who's going to employ you? Not everybody gets the opportunity to become an analyst or another job in MMA. There's not too many of them.
You fight pretty much at home. You're in the UK this time, but you're not actually used to fighting in the UK. Generally, you fought away when you were fighting with EFC. So what's your thoughts? This is 3 in a row over in the UK. So what's your thoughts on that? What's the differences, the big differences between fighting pretty much at home versus fighting, in South Africa or wherever?
There's not a massive difference for me fighting at home. It's London, Glasgow. I don't know. Maybe Glasgow was a bit different because it was properly home, like it's home, I guess. The big fighting away from home was always, you were not only competing against the home fighter and the home crowd and stuff, you're competing at their conditions. So one of the biggest challenges for me when I fought away was I was fighting in like Johannesburg, and it's over 2,000 meters high or something. Like, the altitude was disgusting, and there's no way really to replicate that here in the UK. I live in about 50 meters above sea level if I'm lucky. So those were the challenges that I don't miss, to be honest.
One of the challenges laid down actually on your social media feed on Twitter is you say, mark my words, I'll break into the top 10 next year. again, like that. Obviously, that's the plan, that's the goal. But when you look ahead at the featherweight division and the guy is in that top 10, how do you think you compare to them, Danny?
I think I can beat anybody. In all honesty, I think I can beat absolutely anybody on my night. And it's the way I feel. I think I'm gonna. I still don't feel like I've shown the UFC anything. Like I've had 2 fights. The first fight we spoke about, I went in there on a broken foot on 2 weeks' notice, and I maybe showed a bit of grit and determination. My second fight went 30 seconds. Showed I've got a bit of stopping power and maybe a bit of finishing ability. But I don't feel like I've really shown half of what I can do yet. So hopefully this is the fight where people will stand up and take notice of what I'm doing and what I'm capable of.
Obviously everybody wants a finish, but like when you say that, do you almost feel like you kind of want a couple of rounds, maybe 2 rounds or 3 rounds, just to show off what you can do in full?
Yes and no. Like the win's always the most important thing. If it comes in the first round, I'll take it. I'm quite fortunate. I don't know, like the way I fight, my style lends well to getting finishes and putting on exciting fights. I don't think I've been in very many boring fights. So even if it is short, then hopefully it'll be sweet.
With the card as well on Saturday night, a lot of people are talking that it's probably the best card we've seen this side from the UFC. So how exciting is it to be on a card with big eyes? Like a lot of people tuning into this one, is it something that you can see further down the card that you can really make a statement and really, as you said, stand out and show not just the UFC but the fans of the UFC that might be familiar with you in the likes of the States? Is this a big opportunity to really lay a marker down and show them who Danny Henry is?
Absolutely, it's a massive opportunity, and that's the way I'm looking at it. I used to get a lot of anxiety and stuff about preparing for fights and the build up, and especially fight week. But I'm just excited for this one. I'm just excited to go in there and give it 110%. And I hope the best Dan Ige turns up. Or I don't know how you say his name. Is it Dan Ige?
It's Ige. Ige, I think.
We're rolling with Ige. So if we all say Ige, we'll sound right.
Yeah. I hope the best version of him turns up on the night because I want to beat the best man that he's got in him.
I remember watching an interview with you, and you mentioned that you aren't a big MMA fan, as in you don't really watch it a whole lot. You love training, but you're not a big fan of watching it. Is that still the case? And has that always been the case?
To a certain extent, like I'll still watch the big cards, and obviously I try and watch as much in my own division as I can, just so I can keep eyes on people. But yeah, like I don't. And when I do watch it, I'm fast forwarding to the fights. I don't watch none of the analysis. I don't listen to none of the background stories. None of that. I just watch the fights. That's it. And if I know who's won, I don't even watch them get the hand raised. Just go to the next fight. Like I'm not bothered about the fluff. I'm not bothered about the walkouts. I just want to watch the fights. And it's the same. I suppose it's the same for when I fight too. Like I don't really do a lot of this stuff, the media stuff. I probably don't post half as much as I should on social media and stuff, and maybe that's why I'm a bit quieter than most, and why you haven't really noticed me in the last year or two or year or so. But yeah, I'm just there to fight.
Do you think that's though? Like I find that refreshing. I have to be honest, because like at the moment, we were talking about stories earlier, and we were saying fighters agreed to fight each other on Twitter and all this shite. But do you think that that's a good way? In some ways, like you're building your career in the UFC. This is your 3rd fight. So, but you win the weekend. You're 3-0 in the UFC, and as you said, people aren't noticing that. So, in some way, you're almost like just flying under the radar at the right time, if you know what I mean. And then all of a sudden, you spring on the scene, and they're like, "Who's this guy?" Like, you know what I mean? All of a sudden, they're looking at your record. You're going, "Where the fuck's this killer coming from?" So, is that maybe a tactic to sort of lay low and snipe?
Nah, it's not a tactic. I'm just rude and ignorant.
Typical Scot.
Just a typical grumpy Scotsman. Like I struggle energy wise, especially closer to the fight and stuff to do the media stuff, and I hate repeating myself, and I don't even like talking about the fights, to be honest. I just like getting in and doing it. I just like doing it. I don't want to overthink it.
So is that something that maybe like you lean on James a lot for, your head coach, is that he basically comes up with the master plan, he studies the fight, he puts the hours in the fights, and he basically gives you the information to then embrace your violence and do as instructed?
To a certain extent, James obviously is a massive influence on my style and the way that I'll approach any fight. But I like looking at fights myself, and I'm very honest with myself. I know my strengths and my weaknesses, and I know exactly. I can look at a fighter and know what I want to avoid and what I want to push. So between me and James, we've looked at them and we know what we're going to try and do.
I know you've opened up a new gym, a new facility, higher level. Has that been a big positive in this camp as well?
Massive positive. Like the mat space is huge. Like we were starting to trip over each other in the old place where we haven't got space to move. So we've got so much more mat space now. We've got strength and conditioning facilities there. We've got a cage. We've got even we've got a little room where we can go watch footage. Like it's just made it a game changer, and it's the best facility in Scotland by a long shot.
And you notice that as well, Danny, like the likes of success of yourself and teammates, that more eyes are on Scottish MMA now, because I would compare Scottish MMA a lot to Irish MMA. That we've always got your hardcore fans and stuff but the more you guys are getting onto the UFC, I'm sure the gym is getting packed with numbers, as you said, you're tripping up over. But are you noticing an evolution in Scotland of MMA?
Absolutely, and even just the standard. I mean, like the amateur guys that we've got coming through now in comparison to when I was an amateur is frightening. Like even when I was a novice level pro, I was never really a pro. Whereas these guys we've got purple belts and brown belts fighting amateur. It's scary. There was never that 10 years ago when I started. It was a completely different ball game. So the sport's getting busy. It's getting a lot of good publicity, and even the other shows that are doing well. Bellator's doing big things in the UK, and we've got some Scottish fighters, and they're doing well too. And it can only be good for the sport and the country.
We know you're not into the fluff and all that, but if you do win on Saturday night, is there a name you're calling out, or is it just going to be a number you're looking for?
It's a number. It's a number. It's a top 15.
And again, you said to follow on that. You're not. Will you stay back and watch the rest of the fights? Everything goes your way. Will you come out, sit back, put the feet up, maybe have a beer and treat yourself and take the fights in?
I'll definitely have a beer. I'll hit that green room like it's never been hit before. But I'll watch some of the fights and stuff. I'm interested. A couple of the matchups I think are excellent. Really interesting to see how Gunny and Leon get on, and obviously Till and Masvidal in the main event's a great fight. So, I'll probably stay on and watch him.
I hate to do it, but I'm doing it. Who wins, Till or Masvidal?
I've been back and forth a few times, but I think Till's just going to be too big and too physical for him. I think he's the home advantage and stuff too is a big factor too, but I think he's just too big, too powerful for Masvidal.
And then the co-main, this really has people split. Leon Edwards, Gunnar Nelson. I think it's an intriguing fight, but
it's a great fight.
What we got?
It's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is a tough one. If Gunny gets hands on him, takes him down, it could be over fast. But Leon's got excellent timing, and great hands, great striking. So it's a good old-fashioned striker via his grappler, I guess. I was putting money on it. Probably Leon.
Makes sense.
There's your
that's how I'm feeling in my head. I just don't know. Yeah.
There's your threefold for this week. Then we got Danny Henry, Leon Roberts, and Darren Till.
Edwards. Roberts. He was saying the referee.
Yeah, Leon Roberts. Yeah, Leon Roberts fighting. Just to get off the topic of MMA, we briefly talked about it. We hit record. You're not too happy with Brendan Rodgers leaving Celtic and going back down south?
It is what it is. Like I'm not gonna cry over spilt milk. We've got Lennon back in for the end of the season, which I'm sure will be upsetting the Rangers fans to no end when they go for the 10 in a row, but it just makes it worse for them.
Is that something that will be the chill out for you as well, outside of training, than he is to sit back and watch a bit of football?
I watch it here and there. Again, I'm not. I keep up to date with the scores, but I don't really have a lot of time. I don't sit about very often or watch sport. To be honest, I haven't got the time. I'm busy. Stay busy.
We look forward to seeing you there, and hopefully it won't be a year and injury-free. Things go right for you on Saturday night, and you come out and we get you back in there, and you get that number in the next bout. And they might even bring the Scott and some sun cream over to the bright lights of Las Vegas. Just watch out for the pale fellas walking around.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks very much, fellas.
Listen, appreciate it. Best of luck. Look forward to watching the fight. Cheers, Danny. Take care. UFC on ESPN 5 goes down this weekend in London. That's in England, Rob. Till Masvidal is your main event. It, as we've spoke about, is probably the best card put together in Europe. Anyway, for a long time. Our main event sees Darren Till, as I said, taking on Jorge Masvidal. Robert, I will throw it to you. The general consensus here is that Darren Till is going to be just too big for Jorge Masvidal.
I do agree with that. I mean, he's definitely going to be the bigger guy because you have Masvidal, who is like, you know, that tweener between lightweight and welterweight. Like he's almost in the middle.
He's the perfect example of a 165.
Exactly. And then you have Darren Till, on the other hand, is further up. He's in between middleweight and welterweight, it seems. It did seem like his last weight cut was a lot better. So I'm not sure if he changed things around. Maybe he was doing something wrong. I don't know. But hopefully that's not something that we're going to be talking about on Friday night. But the size will definitely be a factor, I think. But I don't think it's going to be a huge factor just because I don't think Jorge Masvidal has ever really had trouble with guys who are bigger than him. I don't think that's ever his problem. Like, I mean, guys have wrestled him who was bigger. Darren Till's not going to wrestle him. So it's going to be like the power and just the physicality, I guess. But then Jorge Masvidal doesn't really get involved in them type of fights where that gets involved. And neither does Darren Till, really. Like, Darren Till will come forward and hit you hard, but he's not going to lean against you. He's not going to wear you down in that way. And Masvidal is a quick guy as well. So, you know, there could be the opposite effect. Masvidal could have some, be a bit more quicker because he's a smaller guy. So I do think size will be a factor, but I don't think it's going to be huge.
Are you surprised if I tell you that their reach is the same? 74, 74?
No, because I watched Dan Hardy's.
I was just going to say the same.
Yeah, and he mentioned it, yeah.
Edit that. That sounds like a stupid question now. Yeah, but like, Till, I was trying to catch it. Till just looks the bigger man.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Much bigger. And bigger by thickness as well.
Yeah.
I loved their breakdown with each other when it was Dan Hardy and they're in the sort of
face-to-face.
Yeah, the face-to-face, and they were very respectful, but at the same time being respectful, both of them saying, I'm going to batter you. Which was excellent. Like,
lovely analysis. I love that.
Like,
they're gonna batter you.
They're gonna batter you. Like when you look at this one, Till just being in there with Woodley, I'm struggling to see. I was saying to you this morning, you know what, Masvidal, he's going to be hard to put away. Till is predicting he's not going to be happy if it gets outside of the first. So what happens if it does get outside of the first? Is that going to play on Darren Till's mind?
I don't think it will, because like Till has plenty of finishes, but he's not like, again, we don't like to compare everyone to Conor McGregor, but I mean, when Conor was coming up and he was winning in first rounds and he was calling his rounds, that was actually happening really early, whereas Till has never really been that guy. That's why it kind of surprised me when he said, if it goes out of one round, I'm going to be disappointed. He's never really been that guy. Like when he was fighting Stephen Thompson, he told us, like, it's going to be a tough fight. I think I'm the better striker, but there was never like this huge confidence of 100% I'm going to be upset if it gets out of this round. He did call for like a second round or third round finish, but he's never been the guy to say, first round and I'll be disappointed if so. So I don't think that's going to play in his mind. I just think I don't know why he's saying it. It's a bit of a weird.
Looking back at, let's say, Masvidal, he's obviously on 2-fight skid at the minute, but looking at his wins, ignore the loss for a moment. Cerrone, Ellenberger and Ross Pearson. Yeah. It's just a different level, Darren Till, isn't it? Like Ellenberger, no disrespect, but when he fought him, he was on the decline. Ross Pearson, you could argue it was 3 years ago. Ross Pearson, and Donald Cowboy Cerrone, a mutual opponent that they've both shared MMA mats. We all love it.
That was one where Cowboy had fought a couple of weeks before. Wasn't that Denver card where he came on? It was just because it was his hometown card. He fought a couple of weeks previously. And probably shouldn't have taken it.
So comparison is my point there. Darren Till, when you look at his recent opponents, the win over Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, the win over Donald Cowboy Cerrone, but the loss then against Woodley. So,
but that's the thing though, isn't it? When you actually look at the career, those are the only real, those three are the real three big opponents. Aside from that, his best opponent was probably Nicholas Dalby. And that was a draw. So if you're actually looking at resumes and who they've fought, I think Masvidal has been, like, on the whole, like, he hasn't been in there with the best guy, because I think the best guy that any of these guys has fought is Tyron Woodley.
Yeah.
And obviously Darren Till lost. But I mean, if you take all the guys they've fought, I think on the whole, Masvidal has fought the better guys in total. But he's also lost to many of those better guys. And that's the thing about Masvidal that I find, is that he'll be competitive against pretty much anybody. Like, the Damian Maia fight was a close split decision. I thought Damian Maia did a good job winning that one. I thought the Stephen Thompson fight, it was pretty clear to me. But again, he was competitive in that fight. And Lorenz Larkin, Benson Henderson, 2 split decisions. So he's always, and Aloy Quinta, split decision. He's always been really competitive with really good guys. So I think he almost fights to his opponent's skills. He fights up or fights down.
What do you think of the idea, and again, it's coming in the first round mentality, if he gets out of the first round? Do you think that perhaps Darren Till has a little bit of pressure, that everyone is saying, you know, his hype, the hype is gone because he Woodley popped that hype? Or do you think there's pressure and for him to get that finish, and perhaps with that prediction, is it cockiness, or could he potentially be underestimating Jorge Masvidal?
I don't get the sense he's underestimating him, although that comment still is a bit strange to me, because he's never really been that guy. Yeah. But there's definitely pressure on him. I think after that loss, a lot of people almost forgot about him in a way. And that's probably because a lot of people, for some reason, never rated Tyron Woodley, and I don't know why it was. So, yeah, there's definitely pressure on him, but I do think he can handle it, because he handled a lot of pressure going into that Liverpool card and getting that kind of really quick title fight in a way against Tyron Woodley. So, yeah, there's definitely pressure, but I don't think it's too much.
Let's get into the bones with who's going to win. How are they going to
win? I'm leaning towards Darren Till, but to be honest, I'm not hugely confident in it. I know a lot of people who are talking about this fight are really heavily favouring Till, and I see why in a sense, but I just think Masvidal is a really tough guy to fight. Yeah. He's really, really crafty. He's a veteran. He's hard to finish. Yeah, he's hard to finish. But I don't think it's going to be a finish for Till. I think it's going to be a decision. I think it's going to look similar, but not the same as the Wonderboy fight, as in the Masvidal Wonderboy fight, where Till's good at finding his range and landing one shot. He's not a huge combo guy. He lands, one big shot. And Masvidal had trouble against Wonderboy. Again, different styles, but I think Till can do similar things. He had trouble against Wonderboy closing the distance and landing big shots. Wonderboy was just countering him all the time. I think it's going to look similar to that one. And I'll pick Till. But to be honest, I'm not hugely confident in this one.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like, I was watching back Jorge Masvidal fights, and like
he's crafty.
Yeah, but the way he mixes it up in his craftiness, and it's just his boxing on the inside is phenomenal as well. He loves like a left hook to finish as well, and he's dropped a lot with that. But then he'll throw the flying knee in there to keep you guessing as well.
Cowboy.
And he's spinning shit too. Yeah. Like Masvidal, I just think I do believe Darren Till is a middleweight fighting a welter, and I do believe that Masvidal is a lightweight fighting a welter, and I just think there's that difference. I think he could be just naturally stronger than him.
Yeah, I also found that Masvidal does really well when he mixes up and goes for takedowns. So if he does do that and does that early, that could be interesting.
I think Till has good takedown defense.
No, he does, but I mean, I don't even mean if Masvidal gets the takedowns. I mean, if he looks for takedowns and then strikes off the break, stuff like that, he does really, really well. And that's when he was having success against Thompson.
I agree with you in how to fight. I don't think it's going to finish in the first round. I think Masvidal is just too tough to get out of there. I think Till needs to manage his fight engine and realise, and that's my one big concern here, is Till's mindset if we see the end of the first 5 minutes.
As well.
Serious. But my concern is if Jorge Masvidal, and I expect Jorge Masvidal to get out of it, I think it could be Till just bigging it up to say, I'm going to do this to you, I'm going to finish, because it's a spectacular headline, and I don't think he says things to the hype. I just think like Darren Till believes this, and a little bit of me just to start like, Jesus, Darren, Masvidal's hard to get out of there. Yeah, I think that he needs to manage his engine, that he doesn't go for the finish in the first round.
That could be a big problem if he goes for it. Yeah,
he needs to keep it at range, as in his range, the Muay Thai range, land them single shots, get out of there. I think he could potentially, though, if he starts to land, I think his power will tell, and I think he could badly mark up Jorge Masvidal. I can see it going to decision, and I can actually see Till getting late, but it's only if he manages and doesn't go after it. I'm going to pick Darren Till.
Yeah.
But I like you.
See,
I don't
do you
think
know
it's
what
a
it is
wash
as
like
well?
everyone
Is that
thinks.
Masvidal isn't the best like game planner. Like, he doesn't go in there with a game plan and you're like, oh,
He talks about it. He just wants to fight.
Yeah, he just wants to fight, and that can be a detriment to him. It can also be great because if he goes in there against somebody else who does that, generally he looks really good, but he doesn't really game plan. Like, there's a huge difference between him and, say, like a John Jones, who was excellent at game planning and can pick you apart. Whereas Darren Till, he's not a huge game planner, but he can do it. Like, you've seen against Wonderboy, he changed up his style a lot. So I think he could game plan Jorge Masvidal here.
And like I think he can mix it up. Like, as in, you look at Darren. I know the Cowboy finish, but his fight time in the cage is actually pretty long. His average fight time, I'm just looking at there on UFC.com, is 12 minutes and 54 seconds, and Masvidal's 13 minutes. So that's telling you they're two fighters who are used to being in there.
Yeah.
So I think if Till, and I would look at that fight time more so on the Masvidal side, as in Till needs to recognise that, because people don't get him out of there.
Yeah.
So he needs to be insanely careful of that. But I'm going to go Darren Till.
Thoughts, Sean?
We were saying there, Till's looking great, Nick. I have put a picture of him from during the week on the screen for people to see.
Yeah, he looks ridiculous.
He looks ripped, man.
Yeah.
He's shredded.
So which I think is going to lead to an easier weight cut. I don't think we're going to have this
think
weight.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's been working it down gradually and managing it throughout the camp. I hope
so.
Just as well, odds-wise, Darren Till 2-5 and Masvidal, there is just over 2-1 going on Masvidal.
Man, a lot of people on the right Masvidal.
Yeah.
I don't think he wins the fight. I think I think Till wins, but man, a lot of people are on the right at Masvidal.
I think the
what's your pick, by the way?
Yeah, who are you picking?
I'm gonna go Till by late knockout.
Nice. Late knockout.
Your comment, seeing Leon Edwards taking on Gunnar Nelson. This is a fight for me that, like, I don't know what the odds are, Sean. You probably don't tell us till the end.
Nope.
But I think a lot of people are just seeing Leon Edwards walking through. And we were, again, Rob, were talking about this morning, coming in, and I'd said,
it's actually really funny.
I think a lot of people are underestimating Gunny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're
What was
forgetting
my
about
answer?
Gunny. You were like, I think a lot of people are underestimating Leon Edwards. And they're going, oh, okay. But, like, you know, I just think this is a super fight, and I believe that Leon Edwards is going to be the favourite on this, and for that reason I'll be having an absolute punt on Gunnar Nelson. As Danny Henry said, if Gunny can get his hands on him, that submission ratio per win for Gunnar Nelson, he has something like 70% win ratio by submission. Absolutely phenomenal. So I think Leon Edwards to win this, although he'll be happy to engage. I suppose it's his takedown defense is what's going to be big here. For Leon Edwards, we've seen Gunnar have wins like knockouts and knocking down the likes of Brendan Touchdown, finishing him. Gunny is good. He has that karate stance. That's good for his distance management. But be sure Gunnar Nelson is looking to take this to the mat and get a tap out here on Leon Edwards.
That's the thing. Like, I mean, what my feeling on this is that you have one guy who was like really dynamic in Gunnar Nelson. In both ways, like, he's a really dynamic striker, as in, if he lands, there's a good chance you're being dropped, because the way he lands with that karate style, it's very high impact. Whereas Leon Edwards on the feet, I almost said Roberts, Leon Edwards on the feet is that guy who will land some good shots, some big shots, and hurt you, but he's not really that guy who's going to drop you with every shot.
Yeah.
He's going to manage the distance and look good. Same thing on the floor. If Roberts gets on the floor, he's a good grappler. He's very, very good. But if Gunnar gets on the floor, it's dynamic. He'll probably finish it if he gets it on the floor. So that's the way I see it. I can see either going a decision for Edwards, who will just ride out the 3 rounds and keep the fight standing and just land enough, or Gunnar Nelson finish. I'm going to go with a Gunnar Nelson finish, but this is another one where I feel...
Oh, man, I thought you were saying Leon Edwards.
No, I am. Like, I mean, I think he's very underrated. I think a lot of people are underrating him, and I think he can... Like, this is a real 50-50 one for me. Yeah. Really, really 50-50. I can easily see it going both ways. The only thing I'd be surprised with would be like Edwards stoppage. That's the only thing I'd be really surprised about. But everything else is on the table for me. But I think Gunnar will get enough takedowns to probably control it enough and maybe get a submission, but probably like a decision based on grappling. I think.
I'm in agreement with that, and like just to the point of Leon Edwards getting a finish, I think it'd be rare because it's only ever happened with Ponzinibbio when he absolutely treated Gunnar Nelson like a bowling ball.
Yeah.
So for me, like in that aspect, I don't see Edwards finishing him. Edwards is an absolute grinder. How he mixes it up, his style of fighting is fantastic, and I actually think this is a great fight for him to be opened up to the public because he's in the UFC a long time. Leon Edwards,
Cerrone,
and looked great against Cerrone. Yeah. His clinch working them elbows.
I think the Cerrone fight was almost a better performance than Darren Till's one. Darren Till got the finish, but I thought we saw more with
and that's potentially the matchup here. Leon Edwards, Darren Till. The UFC could be potentially vying for that, but like I think Gunnar Nelson, and I genuinely believe people are overlooking Gunny, as you said. His style of striking is hard to deal with as well. But when he gets it,
was having trouble.
I genuinely like in the UFC. Damian Maia would probably be the only one you'd rank higher than him for grappling. So like I just think Gunny could get it, and I think he'll snake the back and he'll get a rear naked choke.
He had that great return as well, where he sliced up Oliveira,
and
that's crazy.
Yeah, and you look at that, he was in trouble against Alex Oliveira, and he still pulled it out. So that's the thing about Gunnar Nelson. You could be getting the better of him, but he's always in the fight. He's always getting the finish. So I'm picking Gunnar Nelson here as well, and I'm going with a second round submission for Gunny.
What's the odds, Sean?
Rear naked choke.
So Leon is a slight favourite at 4-6,
will be,
while Gunny is available at 13-10. Which I'm happy to take.
I think that makes sense. I think that was odds.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's a fucking great fight.
It's a great fight,
I'm going Gunny as well by submission.
We're running out of time. You
Friend
could say
of the
we
show,
have
Gunny.
no time. But Volkan Ozdemir taking on Dominic Reyes. This is an intriguing fight. You've got the undefeated Dominic Reyes taking on Ozdemir. Ozdemir climbed the ranks high with absolutely like insane finishes of the likes of Jimmy Manoway.
Weird finishes.
Yeah, like just short distance. You alluded to it as like Shane Carwin-esque power. He's got just that short range power. Then he came up against DC, Anthony Smith. That has surprised a lot of people that Anthony Smith lost. But then you see Anthony Smith going on and fighting John Jones.
Yeah.
But hands full here in Reyes. But what's your thoughts on this one?
I like Reyes here. I think Reyes is a legitimate prospect in this division. I think he's somebody who could potentially compete for the title in the next year. The only problem with him is that when he gets into exchanges, I feel like he's there to be hit. He has been hit a few times. Yeah, his chin seems really good, but he is there to be hit, and you don't want to get hit by Ozdemir because we've seen what he done strangely in short punches. But Reyes fights really well at range. Again, he's like I said with Gunnar, he's a really dynamic striker. He's really, really good. We haven't seen a whole lot of his grappling, but what we have seen is that if he gets on top, he's dangerous. So there's that. But I just think that the way he throws punches and combinations and the pressure that he puts on, I think it's going to be too much for Ozdemir, who showed that if you put a lot of pressure on him in his last fight with Smith, he could crumble a little bit. And I thought that was, to be honest, the DC one is fine, and losing to Anthony Smith is fine. In theory, it's a fine loss. He's a good fighter, but I just thought his performance there was really underwhelming or something.
I agree. To the point, I'm raging you said it before me, is Ozdemir, when you put the pressure, it's almost like Anthony Smith rode out the storm. And then turned the tides. And like Ozdemir, for me in that fight, I'm not saying that's what he is, but Ozdemir in that fight likes being the hammer. He did not like being the nail.
No, he didn't like it, no.
Nobody does, but there's the mindset that comes through, and the rear naked chokes up by Anthony Smith. But Reyes can do that. But as you said, Reyes has been hit, and I just think Ozdemir, he's got that fucking freaky power.
He does.
It's strange power. But I'm going to go with Ozdemir just because of that freaky power. He can set it up, be it in short range. If he clinches up against the cage, has you up against the cage, he can do it in a clinch position. It's there. But my concern for this fight is if that plan A doesn't work, there doesn't seem to be plan B.
Yeah, the reason why I'm going to go with Reyes as well is because if you watch the way he moves on his feet, he doesn't really look like a light heavyweight. He looks like a welterweight or a lightweight. And I don't know what height he is, but he's huge. It might have been on the screen.
6'4".
6'4", yeah, he's a tall dude. And just the way he moves and cuts angles, like that last one. Do you remember the last fight where it was a decision? But basically he slipped a shot, cut an angle, and then dropped the right hand, or was it left hand? I'm not sure what it was. I think it was a right hand. And basically finished the fight, but the buzzer went at the same time and they gave it a decision. I'm not sure why.
That was crazy.
Yeah, the OSP fight. But yeah.
The big thing here as well is 73% knockout ratio for Ozdemir, 67% knockout rate for Dominic Reyes. It's gone to decision, folks. It's gone to decision. 100% gone to decision.
How are we feeling there, Sean?
How's the odds on your pick, Sean?
The odds are Vulcan is the second biggest underdog of the night. He's 2-1, while Dominic Reyes is 2-5.
That's an absolute. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, but that's an absolute example of MMA. You're only as good as your last fight.
Yeah.
A couple of fights ago,
and the fighter who you're fighting against, their trajectory as well. I think plays
so
into it.
It's
Who's your pick, Sean? Do you have a pick?
crazy.
I'm gonna go Reyes just because of the range advantage. I think
Yeah.
he'll use that, and I think he'll win. Decision.
London's calling for Nathaniel Wood taking on Jose Alberto Coenaz. Nathaniel Wood, if you watch his fights, he can be a berserker. He can be in trouble and land that. Like that Cage Warriors bout just before he signed with the UFC. Absolutely phenomenal. The prospect, gotta stop calling himself that. I always said that with Alan Philpott as well. The Apprentice is like when you become the actual full-time guy. But he's done very well since moving over to the UFC. Do you see the winning streak continue for Nathaniel Wood?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a good matchup for him. I think Jose and Quinones.
That's what I went with.
Yeah, he's a good fighter, but I just think that Nathaniel Wood's pace and pressure and his ability just to drag people into these crazy dogfights is going to win it. But I also think as well, in the same hand, is that sometimes Wood gets into these and he gets hit.
Yeah.
And he does get woken up by that. I mean, like sometimes he doesn't start, and then when someone cracks him with a big right hand, after he got slapped by Brad Pickett outside, he'll wake up. And that can be a problem. He could get finished, but I don't think this is going to be the one. I think it's going to be a fight like that. It's going to be a fast-paced fight. And I think he's going to get like a submission or something. He might drop him and might get into a grappling exchange and a submission. Yeah, I fancy him like late round 1, early round 2-ish. And
when you look back at Nathaniel Wood's record, it's all finishes. You know what I mean? It's all
he's a big finisher.
He gets in, he gets there, and he's a big fan favourite because of that. And ironically, I actually didn't realise it was his last loss. Mentioned Alan Philpott. Forgot that was his last loss was to Alan Philpott back in Bama 24. But yeah, I can see Nathaniel Wood getting the win here. I just think it's a good matchup for him, and I don't mean that again. They're building Nathaniel Wood as he talks well, he fights excellent, he's the style, he's a fight fan favourite. When you watch him fight, Nathaniel Wood is always in exciting fights. His boxing is absolutely superb, but his fighter's heart and fighter's mind, when he's out and almost done, he comes back and lands the killer shot. If you haven't seen it, you have to go back. That Cage Warriors fight, I have to find the I can't remember exactly who it was against Luka Oyovin.
Yeah.
Oh wow, what a fight. 50 seconds of absolutely fucking insanity.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't seen the odds if this might be the biggest favourite.
Good shout, Rob.
Is it?
Yeah. So
I haven't seen
not
the odds.
necessarily.
I promise.
Not necessarily the biggest favourite. There's a couple of Nathaniel Wood is 2-5. There's a couple of 2-5 shots. But Quinones, is that what we're going to?
Yeah.
He's the biggest underdog of the night. He's 9-4.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
and rightfully so. When you look at the rankings, I know the rankings are whatever, but I think there's like 30 places in the rankings.
Yeah.
So pretty big. Hot chocolate. Danny Roberts taking on Claudio Silva.
I like Danny Roberts here. I think he's going to win with his boxing. I think he has shown in his previous fights a pretty well-rounded game. I mean, he had that tough fight with Zawada, but Zawada for me is a really, really underrated good fighter. He can kind of do it all. He has some crazy transitions and grappling. But I just think that Danny Roberts here will basically be able to get to a decision with his striking. If it hits the floor, it could be a problem. Of course, that's always going to be there. But yeah, I think I'm going to go with that. And I think Silva was off for a long, long time. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he fought Leon Roberts, beat Leon Roberts by split decision in 2014 and returned last year. Again, nearly a year ago. So it's another year off. Excellent grappler, but I feel like Roberts would be able to keep it at distance and land enough shots to get a decision. But, that grappling exchange can always be there. And if it gets into that exchange, it could be a problem as well. Yeah,
I agree with that. I think Danny Roberts here, if he keeps it standing, that's where the fight is won for him. Just has to stay out of the danger of Claudio Silva's ground game. Essentially, like it sounds so silly to break it down like that, but you only have to look back, and I think layoff again, as you pointed to, was a big part of it as well.
We look good in the last one though after 4 years. So
I think Danny Roberts keeps it standing and picks it apart. Probably go to the decision. A lot of defending, a lot of sprawling. He might get taken down, but wrestle himself back up, use that natural brute strength of his, and get back to his feet. But yeah, go Danny Roberts myself on that one. Just a matter of interest. Sean, how big are the odds on that one?
Interesting. Again, this is a close fight, which I think is a testament to the quality of the card. I think it's a very good card. So you both picked Danny Roberts. He's 7-5, and Claudio Silva is 4-6.
Well, that's cool. Yeah.
So there's a bet for everyone.
Yep.
There we go. The Battle of Wales. We got Jack Marshman taking on John White Mike Tyson Phillips. Rob asked him when he was on the show years ago, Rob, the old show, why do they call you the White Mike Tyson? He says, it's because I knock fucking people out, isn't it?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, brilliant. So the Battle of Wales, who will come out on the throne, Robert?
This is pretty well matched. It's reflected in the record, 22-8 and 21-8.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. I'm gonna go with Jack Marshman. I think Jack Marshman has shown in the UFC so far that he is tough and can stay in there and can, compete quite well against some guys. I just don't think that the White Mike Tyson has shown his skills yet in the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it's the level of competition, but I just feel like he hasn't really shown it, and it's tough to pick him kind of on the streak that he's been on and the performances he's been putting in. So I just think based on strength of recent resume, even though Marshman's on a skid as well, I'm going to go with Marshman just to outlast him.
I'm going to go with the White Mike Tyson.
Nice.
The reason being is like the fights he's lost to Kevin Holland and Charles Bird, both were rear naked choke losses, so they're taking them. That's the problem about calling yourself the White Mike Tyson, is everyone going,
so he's a
striker. He's going to stand. And Jack Marshman called a hammer. So you presume that he will be looking to maybe get Phillips down and land some ground and pound and get the work done there. But it's interesting that the both Welsh fighters coming up through the ranks in the UK, and they've never squared off before.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So they're two of the best.
They should have,
so I'm going Phillips here, and I'm going Phillips with a finish, because I just think they're going to stand and trade. And this is the one for me that is going to steal the performance or fight of the night.
Nice.
I just think this is going to be absolute fireworks, and John Phillips will get it done with a big TKO KO first round.
Interesting.
How's the odds?
Another well-matched fight, close in the odds. So Jack Marshman is a slight favourite, 4-7, and then John Phillips available at 6-4.
Yeah, makes sense.
So
yeah.
So let's revert back to your treble of the week. So I'm going to throw out the treble of the week for me this time around is going to be Darren Till, it's going to be Gunnar Nelson, and it's going to be Volkan Ozdemir.
Ooh.
So if you were listening last week, my treble came up. We might have to work out the odds there actually on that.
Last week it was 7-1. So
7-1 last week.
Before you get the odds there, just a couple of fights to pick out without going through them, but some good fights. Mark Diaz,
that's a
Joe
great
Duffy
fight.
goes down. That's a really good fight. Tom Breeze, Ian Heinisch, that's a really good fight. And of course, Danny Henry and Dan Ige fight as well. Danny's obviously
that Joe Duffy fight's on very early in the card, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know if it's it's not the main event of the prelims, but it's the second from last prelim. For the main card. So yeah, that'll be on early. We have some good fights. Get the odds.
No, it's the internet has decided to go very slow.
No bother. We can work them out later.
Hold on, we're up now. Fill some airtime. So we are going with Ozdemir. Is 15-8 on that.
Live maths here.
Gunny and Darren Till. So as I done last week, that folks is a better payout. That is 8.85 for that treble. Volkan Ozdemir, Gunnar Nelson, Darren Till. Stick a tenner on it, you win 88.50.
Yeah,
great stuff.
So let's just hope for a few good fights. This is Fight Your Corner. So this is the segment that I got a lot of flack for last week actually. So just to explain it, this is where Sean is going to announce a topic or a subject. Myself and Rob, before the subject is announced, we're going to do the rock, paper, scissors. Got it right. The winner is pro the statement and the loser is con the statement.
Or for and against.
Yes. So the idea of this last week when Sean said DC is the greatest heavyweight of all time, I had to defend that.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's necessarily my
We
opinion.
know.
I just have to defend it. So leave the spectacle guy alone.
No, got some flack in the comments. Can you
Certainly did.
Yeah.
So the idea, as we said, we're going to draw and see who is for and who is against. Sean is going to give us a subject. We're completely blind to this.
Yes.
And then we basically have a debate, and we have open statements, and then we can have a back and forth. And then Sean will tell us when it's over, and he will decide who won the debate. So it's, again, we're completely blind, so we don't know. So I suppose we'll do our rock, paper, scissors first to see who goes.
Sure.
So it's 1, 2, and then go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm pro. I'm
and,
for the statement.
and I'm against the statement. So Sean, the referee and judge and executioner, what's up? What do you got for us?
So, the build up to UFC 235, I've seen a lot of Rashad Evans in the embedded episodes and stuff.
Okay.
He was with friends with he was helping out Usman and he was talking to John Jones.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just thinking about guys like Rashad Evans, who's fought fairly recently, looks well past it at this stage. Thinking of guys like PJ Penn, who I've seen during the week, has getting scheduled for a fight.
Yeah.
Thinking along these lines, and you're kind of looking at a lot of these guys still fighting on, and you're like, wrap it up, man, will you? You know what I mean?
So tell me, brother.
And you're just like, come on, call it a day. Like, we don't like seeing you going on this long. And my question is, does the UFC have, and other promotions, have a duty of care towards older fighters to say, no, we're not giving you another fight? And I was thinking Chuck and Tito as well. Like, Chuck looked not great, like, you know.
So hold on, what way are you phrasing the question? Because I'm against it. And
So
you're
Rob is pro that the
But what way-
UFC does have a duty of care.
Okay.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay. Sweet. So what did we do last week? So the person
you
who
won, so you choose if I can go first.
All right, I'll
or if
pass
I
it to you, as you did.
So they don't have a duty of care, is my argument. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you an opening statement.
I'll give it a little bell there. Let's ring this bell and get going.
Okay.
Open
So this
statement.
is I think this is a good one because you actually mention when we talk about fighters and hanging them up that you say, who am I to tell a fighter when his time is up?
Yeah.
And if you go back and listen to obviously Fight Talk, Rob is
The old podcast.
Yeah, he's constantly saying that. Like I'd say every time he'd say, who am I? And when we were talking about Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz, you know, we were like, you know, I don't want to watch the fight, but at the end of the day, these guys are legends of the sport, and if they pass all the medical tests and they're fit to fight, let them fight. Who are we to decide? Now, to almost counter my argument, to use Rashad Evans, he fought on too long, but he's a fighter. A fighter is a fighter. They want to get in there. They want to test themselves. We were only talking about in the show today about we thought potentially Derek Lewis might hang them up. Fighters are this breed. This is all they know. They're like a horse that's running in Cheltenham. It just wants to run. This is what it's built for. These fighters have this fighter's mindset. They live in gyms. They train hard. They are dedicated fighters. If they can pass all the medical tests required, they can. Chuck Liddell had to show is striking. You have to go in to get your license in where you're fighting. You have to show you have techniques. You'll have people judge you to say, yeah, they are competent, they can still fight, they still have skills, they're not slow, they're not whatever it may be, and they allow them to fight. The UFC is a promotion. They have to promote their fighters correctly. So it's a weird thing that happens in MMA where sometimes the older fighters get fed to the young lions. That would be a part of it. I'd say, look, match them well. I forever, again, when we spoke previously, let legends fight legends. Like, let Frank Mir and Fedor fight at this time in their age. They'll have good fights. Turned out that the Chuck and Tito fight was absolutely awful, but both fighters got in there and had their fight and they walked away. You look at Chuck Liddell when he talked over it, I thought that was going to be the worst defeat possibly for Chuck Liddell,
wrap it up soon,
because he had said that, you know, Tito was the better man on the night, and that is the big loss that killed Chuck Liddell. But at the end of the day, a fighter is a fighter, and if they can pass all their medical tests and be proven to get in there and fight, as Rob would say, who am I, or who is the UFC to tell them they can't?
Yeah, I do say that. I still agree with that. I don't think we should tell them whether, but I think the big difference is that we're not the ones that are employing them, promoting them, making money off their names. And I think if you're the UFC or you're any other promotion, I think you have some kind of duty to ensure that you're putting guys in there who can safely compete against other fighters. And I do think that, you know, there is a point of what you said, that if they pass their medical tests, then, you know, it's kind of difficult in that way. But I also think, based on what I've looked at in the past, I don't think the medical tests are really up to scratch in terms of what we can detect in a fighter's brain for like CTE and stuff like that. I know there's a lot of tests out there, but it shows after, basically after they die, they can check their brain after. There's no real test to show that.
Bit late, better late than never, I suppose. But
yeah. Exactly, better late than never. But I do think that promoters who, you know, at the end of the day, a promotion, unless like you're an amateur promotion, even though some of them do make money, but the whole point of you running the show is to make money. I think you have a duty not to make money off fighters who are going in there getting hurt past the point of what they should be. And fighters will be fighters, so they do need that. They do need their employer to say, no way, we know you want to fight. We don't want to be the ones to tell you that you shouldn't fight, but at the end of the day, you're going to come to me and you're going to want to fight. You're going to want to make money, and I'm going to have to be the one to make you retire, or to at least not promote you in my promotion. I think there's definitely some kind of duty from that side, because if you let fighters kind of just have free will on fighting anywhere, I think you'll have cases like Chuck Liddell continuing on getting knocked out. And maybe even bad promoters. Like I don't think the UFC necessarily are that thing. I think the UFC do a good job telling guys to hang it up when they should hang it up. You could argue a few instances where they didn't. But like Chuck Liddell, I think they've done a good job with that. But I'm sure you have a lot of scumbag promoters out there who won't do that, and they'll make names off, or they make money off names, and they'll continue to promote guys who shouldn't be in there. And as I said, I just don't think the medical tests are up to scratch.
So I
think there should be, jumping in on my, you went for ages as well. So I think there should be another buffer there to stop them, especially maybe. So yeah.
I think a perfect example of it,
we're going into the debate now. That was the opening statements. Cool. Just to clarify, Noel was a bit unhappy there. You both got 3 minutes there, so
don't believe that for a minute. I'll be timing it when it's out tomorrow. If we take the argument of before them, like, and use Rashad Evans again as that mark, right? Do we judge a fighter on his age, or do we judge him on defeats? Because if that's the case, if we judge on their age, you're being ageist, and you'd rule out some of the absolute MMA legends. I'll bring you to Randy Couture, who only got into MMA very late in his career, bet some of the most formidable heavyweights and light heavyweights during that time. To change sport, you look at somebody who has fought and become a world champion in Bernard Hopkins. You look at George Foreman, who's competed at late and became world champions. And then you throw it back to fighters because they're like young and they've just been knocked out a good few times. So where's your mark? Is it because you're 39, so because you got knocked out in your last two fights, you must be done? When there's fighters like Cody Garbrandt is a young fighter who's had 3 heavy knockout finishes. He's been beaten. So do we tell Cody Garbrandt it's time to hang them up, Cody? So I think age is just being ageist. There's so many examples of great fighters who continue. Like, you look at the heavyweight division, some of the best heavyweights in the world. Daniel Cormier he's turning 40 soon. He's older than me, and fuck, that's old. And he is the UFC heavyweight champion. So he was the 2-time champion. So to be ageist towards a fighter, I do think promotions have to cultivate fighters, but to turn around and say, no, you can't fight on us if they're on a winning streak, or if they're on a losing streak, by all means you can cut them, but you can't tell them that no, you're not fighting for us any longer because we have them concerns. If you can medically be proven that you're fit and healthy and ready to go.
I think that's a different argument, saying you're being ageist, because I don't think that's the exact argument. I think we're talking about fighters who can't compete in a healthy way. It doesn't mean that they're too old. It probably means they took too much damage. Maybe they are too old, but it's a combination of things. I think looking at it in one way, it's not like once somebody gets to age 40, you're done. Mm-hmm. It's once somebody gets to the point where they shouldn't be competing anymore, I think the promoter has a duty not to continue to make money off that person when they clearly cannot fight anymore. Chuck Liddell clearly could not compete at any level, really.
I brought up Chuck Liddell because I knew you would.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he got in there, competed. He looked awful. I'm not going to sit here and try and say Chuck Liddell looked good. But if you look at fighter, for example, right? If you look at Mark Hunt from 2006 to 2010, he lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights in a row. And people probably would have said, look, it's Mark. Time to hang them up. He then beat Chris Tushinger, Ben Rothwell, Chet Congo, Stefan Struve. Do you know what I mean? So the argument is, like, Mark Hunt, I would have been the guy going, Hunt, this MMA thing's not really working out for him, and then he just turns it around. So the argument,
I think that was a bad losing streak. That was a couple. What was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 submissions. So out of those 6 losses, there was 5 submissions. There was 1 KO against Melvin Manhoef, who, fair enough.
Yeah,
I don't think that was the case. I think that's a bad instance. I think, again, bringing it back to Chuck Liddell, bringing it back to guys like that, even Vanderlei Silva now, I think, looking at the way he competes, guys, promoters should be looking at that. And I just think, again, if it comes down to the point of a fighter will be a fighter, this is what they do. They're going to want to fight. They're going to want to make money off that.
They have to be protected by themselves.
They have to be protected from themselves. They have to be protected. And even, I'm sure most coaches are, above board and they want the best for their fighter. But coaches make money off them.
That's commissions. That's where I would differ. I was going to go to that next. Is in a promotion is there to promote a fighter who's put to them. Your coaches, your family, your friends should be the ones who have your back, and they should be the ones who talk to you. And it's not the promoter. The question is, should it be the promoter? It should be the people closest to you that see it. Because like, if you're talking about the CTE and all that type of stuff, that's noticeable. If I know you and you're coming in and over the years you're a fighter, and over the years I can see it being diminished. I know you. I'm gonna go, look, Rob, maybe it's time, it seems to be affecting you, you're getting a little slower in your top press, you're stuttering a little bit, you're a little off, you're not what you were. A promoter mightn't necessarily see that. It's like when you go for the job interview. I'm not the real guy that when I go to a job interview, that's not me. When I start in your company, you're fucked, you've hired me. I'm not that guy. So that's what a fighter would be with a promoter. They're advertising themselves, so they're not going to show, like the Derek Lewis at the weekend. He tore meniscus, ACL, MCL. Do you think the UFC knew that they were going to let him fight? Guaranteed they didn't know that. So that's what I mean. They're going to put themselves forward. But that's why family and friends and the ones closest to you who see you closely. How is a promotion? A promotion should not be liable. This is why they have insurance. They shouldn't be liable for a fighter. If they are presented as a fit and healthy fighter, they shouldn't have the right to say, you ain't fighting anymore. They can cut them from their promotion because they don't want them, but they can't tell them to retire.
Well, here's the example.
In the history of the UFC, Dana White's only done it to one fighter that really stands out. That was Chuck Liddell.
Yeah. Well, bringing it back to the Chuck Liddell one.
The easy target.
He's the
Fedor all over
again. He's the main example. If you look at, say, what happened with him, John Hackerman, who was a long-time trainer of Chuck Liddell, was not involved in Chuck Liddell's camp for a reason, because he didn't want him to fight again. Mm-hmm. So the promoter comes to Chuck Liddell and says, we're offering you a fight. We're offering you X number of dollars. And he goes back to John Hackerman, and John Hackerman says, I don't want you to fight. I'm assuming this is how it went. I don't want you to fight.
Paraphrasing,
yeah. Yeah, and Chuck Liddell was like, oh, I want to fight. Yeah. So John Hackerman was like, all right, I'm not going to be involved in the thing.
I'd say there was a lot more bros in that conversation. Though.
So I do agree that there should be multiple people, his family, his coach, just the people who love him and who are around him. They should be stopping him. But at the end of the day, he's been given this offer from a promoter, and he wants to do it. But you see, the promoter is the one that's offering it, and they're not the one that clearly see that Chuck Liddell should not be competing at that point.
I think Chuck Liddell is an easy target, and the reason being is because he hadn't fought.
But he is a target.
Yeah, I know, but he hadn't fought in 8 years. So there's no other real example of that Chuck Liddell example. He's just a guy
Sport's very young.
But yeah, no, sport is very young.
You could argue BJ Penn.
But BJ Penn is still in there. His last fight, he competed. He just got caught in a beautiful submission. But like Clay Guida, that'd be a fun fight. But Chuck was gone for 8 years, and he just got the itch and came back like a fucking heroin addict. He wants more of it. He can't. He has said he just can't.
Themselves.
He just no. Give them free stations to shoot up in, so they don't get 30 needles.
Okay.
But yeah, Chuck's the example. I think is a bad example because that hasn't happened in the sport otherwise. Like you could argue the PJ Penn. I would have, if I was you arguing this, I would have went BJ Penn more so. But yeah, Chuck Liddell, that's in and regularly in the system. He was out of action for 8 years, and I actually agree in that argument. He shouldn't have been fighting because he was old. He hadn't fought, and man, did you see them videos? But if a fighter is cleared medically, they can compete. It's not up to the UFC to tell you to hang your gloves up.
Closing statements, please. What way did we do this last week? It was
So
you go first because I went first the last time.
Grand.
I think fans, as I always say, shouldn't be the ones that say someone should fight or should not fight. But I do think fighters should be protected from themselves, from their, I guess, quote unquote employer, the guys that the person who was letting them fight. Especially in the case of mixed martial arts, where you as a promoter, you're making money off this person's name. Maybe you made money off their name over the years. I think you have a responsibility to look after this guy or girl who clearly cannot compete anymore. And I think the fact that we don't have any proven evidence that medical checks on CTE, stuff like that, works. I think there's some kind of checks where you can, but it's not very, very reliable. I think there should be some kind of eye test done on fighters. And again, I bring up the Chuck Liddell argument because it is the easy target, but it's the only big target that we have. And it doesn't mean it's not a target. Just because it's the
Sean
one...
gave you one. Sean said Rashad Evans.
Rashad Evans is one as well. He got knocked out a few times, and I think somebody should have told him to hang it up. And probably someone did. I guess Dana White did. And I think that's the right thing to do. Because he needs to be convinced by people who he trusts, which will be his family and his coaches. But if they don't do it, or if they do, I think that the last final barrier should be the promoter to say, listen, I don't feel you can compete here. We're not going to put you in there against a guy. And I think that should be seen.
Thank you, Rob.
I think you have called out the example of Chuck. I think that's an easy call out. I think it's lazy, if I'm being honest with you. Somebody that people were calling to retire as well. One of my favourite fighters of all time, Mauricio Shogun Hua. People were saying it was time for Shogun to hang them up when he lost the likes of Dan Henderson over in St. Peru. People are saying, yeah, it's time. He's getting too much damage. He's taking too much damage. He goes on a run and beats Nogueira, Corey Anderson, Jean Valente. Lost to Anthony Smith, but then came back and beat a young lion and Tyson Pedro. So this is a man who's fought, and he's been in some of the hardest, heaviest fights you'll have ever seen. Them wars with Dan Henderson were absolutely unbelievable. So he's been in tough fights. People were calling for retirement. He's proven that he's in there. He's still fighting young, hungry lions. The other one, Randy Couture, the man wouldn't even be in the sport if you were saying we shouldn't be promoting fighters who've been in there and are just old or whatever it may be. But I just think you're saying medical tests because you haven't seen them. Maybe you just haven't looked for them. They have to go through rigorous. They have to do rounds. They have to do sparring. They have to do fitness tests in front of all these commissions to get a license. So you can't get a license just off your name. A commission does not want the life of a fighter on their hands either. So there's no way they're going to license a fighter if they're in danger of being put in serious damage. So for me, it's up to commissions who license them, doctors who clear them, their family to support them. It's not up to the promotion. If they make you money, you also pay them money. So you're taking their living away from their children. You're taking the food from the table. It's not up to the promotion.
Thanks, lads. That one, I swayed back and forth a lot on that one. I think it's a very muddy topic.
It is.
I think it's a hard one to come down on one side. And again, just for everyone listening, this isn't necessarily my opinion who I pick.
Yeah.
But that's who I feel argued it better. This week, I'm going to give it to Noel.
Oh, yeah. All that mind tricks worked all week.
Much you pay him?
€5, really?
It was the jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just felt it's a very muddy topic, and the examples of like Mark Hunt going on a 6-fight skid, you're looking at that even with the submissions, you're like, he's getting sloppy, he's getting slow, he's like, should he be in now? The testing, you do have to. I'm fairly sure you do have to do the
rounds and all.
Yeah, you don't just get.
There's no CTE test.
I don't know how to. Yeah, but that's fucking. It's
grand. It's grand.
He's one now. He doesn't give a fuck.
I don't know how Chuck got a license. I have no idea.
Neither do I.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I just felt Noel argued it better that it's hard for a promotion to say no, you can't fight anymore. And
weirdly, and this is the thing with it is, I think a promotion does have to protect its fighters because
I think we all would agree that.
I honestly think if you didn't go with Chuck Liddell, because I just think Chuck is too.
He's the big target, though.
Yeah, I know, but it's just too out there. But what is your? You do agree with that, do you?
Yeah, I think the UFC, the promotion has a duty of care. If the likes of BJ Penn and Rashad Evans and who else is in there at the minute.
See, I think like BJ Penn, his last defeat was kind of, you know, if it,
that one's not a great example just because the last defeat. But he has been taking beaten.
He's been talking about retirement for so long.
And he's been in and out.
He's retired about 17 times. But like I was trying just to think of good examples. Randy Couture that tried to play the whole ages card, and then the likes of Shogun like had a bad run, took a lot of damage over his career, and people were calling maybe it was time. So
well, listen, maybe if Sean was more educated, he would have got that answer right. So let's move on.
Look at him,
educating young Sean.
So we've reached that time of the show where we're educating young Sean. So as this is week 2, Sean had some homework to report. So Rob gave young Sean a Pride final conflict in 2005 fight. No prizes for guessing. It was Fedor versus Crow Cop. Sean, you watched it back on your subscription on Fight Pass.
Yeah.
What did you think?
So I have 2 what the fuck moments from this fight, right?
Okay.
The first one is the first round is 10 minutes, like.
Yeah. Oh, I've got to tell him that. Yeah.
What the fuck?
I'd say he was like, "What's wrong with my telly? That's the wrong counter."
Yeah. I was like, a 10-minute round. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Japanese MMA.
They're crazy over there.
And the second one was a fucking yellow card.
Yeah.
2 yellow cards.
Yeah, you remember?
Yeah.
Crow Cop got 2 yellow cards. It's not fucking football we're watching here.
Brilliant. I didn't even think of that aspect of it.
I was thinking of that. I didn't think of the 10-minute round when I was watching it because obviously whatever. But the yellow card was like, oh, Sean's gonna be so confused.
It's like, what is going on?
10% purse deduction as well for that.
What did you find looking at MMA in a ring?
It was weird. They kept falling, like going through the ropes and stuff, and like it's going through the ropes was one thing, and then the ref would bring them in if they were, say, grappling beside the ropes. The ref would then bring them into the center of the ring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it does slow down the action a little bit. So I do think when you're watching in a ring, you do kind of get the reasoning for the cage.
Yes.
Like some people when they say, "Oh, MMA, they fight in a cage," like
fighter safety.
It's because it's good.
Yeah,
it's because it
fighter
works.
Safety. They don't fall out.
Did it feel like, because you like didn't watch it at the time? Did you get the sense of how big it was?
Yeah, it was huge. The arena was packed.
No, but the fight itself.
Yeah, the fight itself, as in how big of a fight it was. Did you get the sense from the commentators or from?
That's. I mean, I got that sense from the crowd, and even they don't show that much build up on Fight Pass, but even just the way Bass Rutten and stuff were talking about on commentary, and that was you could kind of tell it was the fight at the time.
Yeah.
What
did you think watching fights, and it was like Bass calling the action and stuff?
Yeah, Bass was cool
with different voices calling.
It was odd because you just get used to. Even when I started, it was Goldie on the UFC and Rogan, but it was cool listening to Bass. Like I thought the other guy was it Mauro Ranelli.
Yeah,
it is him. Yeah,
Ranello,
Ranello, he does the boxing and stuff now. That's where I know him from. But
Mamma Mia!
It was weird listening to him on UFC on Pride. Like that was weird.
And what did you think of the fight itself?
I thought
Fedor. Now that we had the debate of last week. Fedor, watching that, do you think he qualifies as potentially the best heavyweight? Look, it's only one fight. I know.
Yeah. I thought.
Look at me trying to get put me debate win last week.
Yeah. I thought he looked good. Like his conditioning for it was 3 rounds. Yeah, 3 rounds. I thought he was very good. Like you could Crow Cop sort of tired and stuff, but I thought Fedor's conditioning was very good, and he was very dominant. Like
So what would you score the fight now? Would you recommend that fight for somebody else? If someone said to you about MMA, would say, you need to watch Crow Cop.
Yeah, I think it was definitely one of them that, like, if you're relatively new to the sport, then you should be watching it. Like,
yeah, great stuff.
And as they would say in Monty Python, and now for something completely different, UFC 116, Lesnar Carwin, Akiyama taking on the crippler Chris Leben. Very different fight. What did you think?
This one was crazy. Fuck me. What is Chris Leben's chin? Both of their chins. I took some notes. I have them beside me here. And what I have written is I just have chins in capital letters.
Yeah.
Because they both took shots. It was mad. Like
he's like a zombie, isn't he, Chris Leben?
It's crazy. He just keeps walking forward and taking shots and eating shots and giving shots. And
the interesting one about that you weren't privy to was he had a huge win like 2 weeks before against Aaron Simpson.
That was another. They mentioned on commentary, and I was like, no, he definitely didn't fight 2 weeks before the fight. Like, he definitely didn't. And then I was on Tapology after, and he fought 2 weeks before on Tough.
Yeah, it's insane. One thing I got from it, and I don't know if you got this, but rewatching them back and watching them back to back, there's a huge difference in terms of how MMA was promoted on both sides, isn't there? Yeah. Like it's almost like almost like a different sport the way it was promoted.
Yeah. The one thing I thought as well, that was a 185 fight. Like, I thought they both looked very small for 185.
Yeah, it's a different time. Yeah.
And what do you think, looking at the fights, as in to tuning in on Saturday night? Do you think the level of fighting has changed? Or would you notice it that was an old fight, like without?
Yeah, I think you can tell the game's evolved a lot. Like, I know Leben got his grappling was very good early on. He weathered a lot of sub attempts by Akiyama. I'm just calling him Akiyama. That's a great nickname. But he was looking for that armbar the whole time. Yama was, and Leben done well. But yeah, you can tell the game has evolved a lot. Like
he's not like Chris Leben wouldn't get away with that these days.
No, definitely not. He'd be gone, and he'd be winning in a round or losing in a round.
Fun fight.
Yeah,
great fight.
Yeah, and very different because one is considered like one of the greatest and most important fights of all
not
time.
Quite as crazy. The other one's just
the round 2 in that Akiyama fight was fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it was
because you could both tell they were very tired then in round 3, but it was still a great round. But round 2, they just stood in front of each other.
Yeah, it was insane. It was Jesus Christ. Chris Leben takes a shot, doesn't he?
Yeah, super fight. Yeah. Now for this week, Robbie, I'll let you go for. I'll go first because I went first. You went first last week because you were probably still doing research. For
no, I have the fight.
Yeah, all right, go on.
Oh, so I go first?
Yeah, I'll let you go first.
Okay, this is in the UFC, so I won't go Pride this time.
Okay.
This is UFC 125. It's the main event. Can you guess?
No.
GSP. No, it's a title fight. It's
that didn't rule it out.
No. It's Frankie Edgar versus Gray Maynard. 1. At UFC 125. Actually, number 2.
Yeah, it's
technically.
I know Frankie was the lightweight champion at some stage, but I don't know at this stage. So say nothing.
I won't say anything.
Yeah.
It's actually it's their second fight. It's not number 1.
Yeah.
Great fight, Rob. Good work. I am going back to the year that was 2011. UFC on Versus 4.
On Versus?
Yeah.
I remember UFC on 4. I remember UFC on Fuel.
I wonder if I can get this.
Pat Berry.
Oh, you told me.
Taking on Czech Congo.
Okay.
This was the main event. It's a heavyweight fight. Pat Berry, you might recognise him.
I know the name. Yeah.
He's Rose Namajuna's other partner.
Yeah.
Throws tennis balls at her and she punches them.
Yeah.
And Czech Congo is on an insane win streak in
Bellator
now. He's a Bellator heavyweight who wasn't in the heavyweight division
tournament.
He's on like an 8-fight win streak.
Okay.
In Bellator currently. Pat Berry
likes to kick people in the nuts.
No longer fights, yeah. But they're fun fights, so we want you to go off. We want you to do your study, your little notes, and give them a grade.
How'd I do this week?
Excellent.
Yeah, 2 fun fights. I thought actually that was brilliant with Pride. 10 minute fucking round.
I
yellow
completely
card.
forgot about that.
Fantastic. I didn't even enter my mind thinking about it like that, you know. Deadly. But now let's move it in and keep it in Sean's world, but in the weird world, the weird and wonderful news. So Sean, what have you got for us this week?
So this week I have a video. This is a video of Lyndon Arthur. He's a professional light heavyweight boxer, former Team GB, Olympic star, all that stuff. And he caught someone robbing his car this week.
What an idiot.
Imagine being that unlucky to rob a car and for be a boxer.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
So we got sound on this, Rob?
We do now.
Beautiful.
Yeah, look, yes, the little bastard that was robbing my car. Remember I told you I'd catch him? Sorry, bro.
Sorry, bro. But the thing, though, is that looks like a fake cry, doesn't it? It's almost like you better cry on camera because you were robbing my car. I caught you. If you don't want me to dig you around,
play it
cry.
Again. Play it again.
He goes,
sorry, bro.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah, look, yes, the little bastard that was robbing my car. Remember I told you I'd catch him? Sorry, bro.
Like, in fairness, like, it's a good message. Don't rob cars. People pay money for these things and they're quite important to people. So stop being a little shithead. Go out and earn the money and buy yourself a car. But he does only look like a kid. But that could be a good lesson for him. You know, I'm robbing this guy's car. I wonder what this guy does for fucking a living.
Bet you won't rob a car again. Well, he might.
Yeah, he's probably one now.
He might just learn not.
He's probably one now.
He might just learn not to get caught next time.
Yeah. Get better at robbing.
Yeah, get better robbing cars. That's... If you're going to take anything away from this...
Any message,
yeah.
Be good at stealing cars. Don't be getting caught. Daylight robbing it.
Daylight.
It's dark out. Anyway,
idiots.
You got anything else for Sean?
So I have a tattoo got by Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw.
Okay, so there's TJ Dillashaw.
There's TJ Dillashaw.
Dillashaw.
Yeah, it's a nice tattoo.
And here's Cody Garbrandt.
Hold on. Go back again. The other way. Yep. Good work.
Doesn't loop.
Yeah.
So, as Mike Goldberg would say, virtually identical.
Very good.
So, right, who got the tattoo first?
So TJ got the tattoo first, and he got it after he KO'd Cody for the first time, and then Cody got his after he got KO'd by TJ for the second time.
Was it a bet?
I don't know what it was.
I think you're onto something. I wonder if I knock you out again, you're gonna have to get a tattoo that I got when
But
I
you have
knocked
to
you
get
out.
Of my girlfriend as well.
Yeah.
Well, you have to get a slightly
Slightly worse.
worse version of
Yeah.
my tattoo.
Yeah. I love my tattoos. I want a tattoo better than somebody else. You get a worse tattoo of my tattoo, so I can say I
Man,
have it.
considering the rivalry these two have to have that.
It's bizarre,
I
isn't
just
it?
noticed the location on Cody's one as well. It says "fuck it" from Thailand.
Oh yeah.
Fuck it.
Fuck it. Phuket.
Phuket, I believe it's called.
I prefer fuck it.
So do I.
But that is so weird.
Fancy
It's,
that going
it's
on
going to be
Thailand.
so awkward if they ever fight again.
Yeah, I know. Matching tattoo. Well, they'll have to wear long shorts. Remember the old school
Yeah.
MMA shorts, the really long
Man.
board shorts. Speaking of shorts, though, if you just go back one and look at TJ Dillashaw. Look at them shorts.
Some funky shorts.
Look
there.
at them shorts.
Yeah, they're right up my street.
Do you know what they are? They're $2.50 in pennies going over to Salou.
Yeah,
That's what they are.
Salou. Santa Ponza.
They're lads holiday
I
stuff.
actually never went to Salou.
Never. Oh, yeah.
Not Salou. I went to Santa Ponza
Ah,
like
of course you
6
were.
times.
Yeah, sure. North
They're
side.
lads
Of course
holiday
you were.
stuff.
Fucking north side. Fucking the north side in the sun. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next
I've
we
been in
have
Santa Ponza before 5 times myself. We go in August, you know, when it's expensive, when all you Northsiders aren't there.
I went in August as well.
No,
the American viewers aren't going to know what's going on here.
Yeah, I know.
it's a kip.
Next up is a guy
Spain.
called Kimura.
Kind of.
He's an account on his Instagram, Kimura Shops. He posts some all UFC related memes. They're
Memes.
weird as fuck. Is the only way I know how to describe
Weird
it.
as fuck.
Can't get over tattoos.
Yeah. Cody Garbrandt should have got this tattoo.
Holy
So
fuck.
this is what he posted. It's Ben Askren naked riding bareback on Darren Till as a
Well,
lion.
finger in his ear.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even. Yeah.
And
He
then
has finger in his ear.
Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Dana
jumping
is
on the
there
side.
and Khabib is there.
Yeah.
I don't
Dana
know.
White's probably saying, that shit's illegal.
Yeah, probably. That's bizarre. Dana White is clearly wearing makeup.
Very weird. Is there a comment or a reference? I know Ben Askren said that he's going to fly to London,
Yeah.
but did he say something like, I'm going to finger you in the ear and climb on you like you're a lion?
Maybe not that specific.
I must have missed that one.
Yeah. Must have missed that one.
Very strange.
The thing about Ben Askren though is he
did
fits
he
in with.
paint this?
No, that's a Photoshop.
Yeah, it's a Photoshop.
Yeah, that's a beautiful work of art. The thing about Ben Askren is that he has the hair that fits in with all that kind of stuff because they all had like curly hair. Did you ever see it, like all the
godlike
statues
hair,
now? Yeah,
yeah.
godlike hair. Yeah.
Godlike hair.
Ben Askren, you have godlike hair.
And he can squeeze watermelons.
Yeah, I just think Dana White looks fucking hilarious in that.
It's very strange.
Very weird. Thanks,
Very
Sean.
strange. Well done,
You've done your
Sean.
job.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Very strange. The whole section's called Weird.
Yeah.
So go weird now.
Yeah.
This has been A Few Good Fights, episode 2. Thanks to Danny Henry for coming on Fight Week. Fight Week.
Can't
Danny
ask
Henry
for any more.
coming on, having a
Well,
chat with
come
us.
on, fight night.
Yeah, come after the fight. Give us a bell. We'll Skype you. Thanks to Robert Palin, to Sean Taylor, you as the listener. We're glad you joined it. We're getting great feedback, all your messages. Thanks a million. Really appreciate it from episode 1. So if you're listening to this point and you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notifications and you get all our videos. As well, if you are listening or you haven't yet, you can listen on iTunes or Android. If you go onto iTunes, give us 5 stars. If anything less, don't waste your
It's
time.
cool, yeah, it's just really,
yeah, just don't. Just, listen, but give out. And this has been episode 2. We are back in your life next week, next Tuesday. New episode drops every Tuesday, 1 p.m. This is episode 2 done. Enjoy the fights. Peace. So apparently if you press this button somewhere here, it subscribes and you get all the notifications for the show. So hit that button there.
You have to click the bell though to get the notifications
here.
down the bottom.
Make sure you hit that and they get the ringer things because Rob didn't know. So it's the button
Yeah.
there or there.
It's somewhere roughly around that area.